It's an exciting Wednesday morning. Welcome to the AM News. My name is Pakwesi Shando. Quickly, let's jump to Nkoranza, where one person has been confirmed dead, while 9 others, including 3 in critical conditions, are receiving treatment for gunshot wounds at the St. Teresa's Catholic Hospital following a clash between rampaging youth and the police at Nkoranza in the Bono East region. In protest against the alleged killing of Albert Akwesi Donko, the youth in the farming community attacked the Nkoranza Municipal Police Headquarters and freed at least 6 suspects in custody. A security reinforcement from Techuman could not deter the youth from throwing stones and clubs at the officers after destroying property, including vehicles, at the police headquarters. Ohimin Teya of our security desk has more in the following report.
Angered by the alleged killing of a 28-year-old trader and a footballer by the police, the youth of Nkoranza, who had earlier suspended a protest march, vented their spleen on the local police headquarters.
We are not going anywhere until the police kill us all. Nobody.
They called off the march to give an ear to the paramount chief of Nkoranza, Nana Kwame Bafo IV, who appealed for calm as he promised the support of the traditional council for speedy investigations.
If we get the culprits today, everything will be fine.
The demeanor of Nana Bafo, who echoed concerns of the youth, is one that portrays the feeling of insecurity among the larger population in Nkoranza.
Even when I came today, my policeman, I was a bit scared when I saw him with a gun. Because you are not sure who pulled the next trigger, who fall victim. Nobody feels safe here. If the peacemaker is alleged to be committing this kind of crime, then you are not sure of yourself.
Few minutes after the meeting with Nanano, a section of the youth bent ties as they blocked a section of the main Nkoranza Ejura road in front of the police headquarters, whilst casting insinuations and aspersions on officers on duty. Perhaps that was a shadow of things to come as the situation escalated, with the police headquarters becoming targets of the youth who wore hoods to conceal their identity amid threat to journalists not to film their ads. They managed to flee suspects in police custody, including this man, who was remanded by an Nkoranza court.
Police station. Police phone you know for abunsan. Yes, phone
The attack remained one-sided for several minutes until the arrival of a police reinforcement team. The youth, bent on taking the fight to police, stood their ground as they pelted the armed officers with stones and clubs. At least 9 persons who sustained gunshot wounds are receiving treatment at St. Teresa's Catholic Hospital. Reverend Father John Breme is administrator of the hospital.
We have about 9 people who have suffered various injuries. Some have been sent to the theater to be operated on. The second one is on the table that they are working on. So I was told that one, the bullet, penetrated through the stomach. So I think they have to work on the intestines. And the other one, I think, was through the leg. So it has bled for many hours. Now at the theater that they are working on. And the last one at the emergency currently, there's a bullet, at the chest. So it was in coma, and they have the resuscitation that have been done. So we hope that very soon they'll take him also as well to the theater to be operated on.
Police presence has since been increased to protect lives and property. From Nkoranza in the Bono East region for JoyNews, Ohimin Teya reporting.
One of the parents who lost 4 of his children to the Wednesday accident that happened at Ankase in the Krachi West municipality has contemplated suicide. According to him, the shock of losing 4 children of 10 makes him feel all has been lost. Parents and family members of victims of school children also say that rather than looking for justice for their dead relatives, they would opt for support and compensation to enable them perform the funeral of the departed ones. The residents are also calling on the regional highways to construct speed ramps on the stretch to reduce the number of accidents. Peter Senu spent some time in the community and has come through with the following report.
Five of 6 school children who were crushed to death on the spot on their way home from school last Wednesday at Nkoranza in the Krachi West municipality were laid to rest last Friday. A Toyota saloon car ran over the children from behind, killing the 6 on the spot, with the 7th, a 3-year-old girl, at the Tamale Teaching Hospital receiving treatment after sustaining degrees of head injuries, according to doctors. It was a sad atmosphere when schoolmates, family and friends put their beloved to dust. Some family members who swore to avenge the death of their beloved changed their stance just after 24 hours. John, who was furious the previous day, says he is now calm and has left everything for God.
I was planning that whatever our family will say or other outside people will say, we support them to do that, to retaliate what the man has done to us.
That was your position yesterday.
Yes.
And what has changed?
So the way people, they send people to come and apologize and cool our temper down. We are not God, and we don't know what will happen.
So you are no longer calling for justice?
For justice. The only thing we need is that we want government to help us to solve the case or to pay the debt of the incident.
So after that, the driver can go free?
We can go free.
Wow. That is interesting.
We can go free because that's why I first said we are not God. So if somebody give you advice, then the second person come and give you advice, you have to take it.
They also say seeking justice for the dead would be of no use, but a compensation package from the accused family and insurance package from the insurers of the vehicle would help ameliorate their pain.
The
car was rented. It must be insured. So if the insurance can cover the children for us, because we do not know what the future holds for them, insurance must be paid us.
Papa
Gondo, who also lost 2 of his children to the accident, says it was an accident and would not support a stiffer punishment for the driver.
So he's saying that for him it's about the funeral that is concerned, much concerned. But for the driver going to court and even prison, it's not his interest.
The Wasa family, who lost 4 of its members to the accident, is gravely saddened. The father, sharing how the family is coping with the loss, says he had even contemplated suicide due to the enormity of the shock.
Because Nkoranza 114 Afrimudia then
What happened last time? I just wanted to take my life. If I've lost 4 of my children, what else do I have? Now I need support from the leadership of the region so I can have some peace of mind.
It is right now. I'd say, Rina Misto, MPU, I would tell more on from my agenda.
The father of 10, now 6, is also not asking for justice, but support, especially for the 3-year-old on admission at the Tamale Teaching Hospital. The communities along the stretch have since constructed speed ramps that could equally cause an accident, since the dominant mode of transport in the area is motorbikes and tricycles. The Regional Police Command says it is interested in prosecuting the driver. The police, the MC for Karachi West, the regional minister have since reached out to the family. Peter Sanu for JoyNews.
Let's now turn our attention to Cape Coast, where an Elmina-based radio station, Benya FM, in the central region was attacked on Monday by unknown persons. According to reports, the radio station was discussing matters of the non-availability of premixed fuel and how those who were not fishermen were given the product to the detriment of fishers who needed it. According to eyewitnesses, in the middle of the discussions, some muscularly built men stormed the station, disrupted the discussion, pulled down equipment, and beat up the presenter.
The Elmina-based Benya FM, it was attacked yesterday. The presenter was beaten. He was just discharged from the hospital. What really happened? They said they were having a radio discussion that centered on the premix fuel, its distribution, the cartel that has been hoarding it, and all of that. And they were here when some muscularly built individuals stormed the station, disorganized the entire thing they were doing, and so the discussion had to come to a halt. In the process, they had to subject the presenter. Let me engage the presenter who was beaten. He said, what exactly really happened?
I was at the studio doing my show as it is every Monday I did. Then a bunch of people rushed into my office and started beating me without asking me anything.
What was the discussion about?
The discussion was about the premise, how they share it, and today that day the MC did his best to let the place become. But those people, they said they are the people of the MC, and they bunch in that they want to take their share of the premise. And after the incidents, I asked, what are they doing with the premise? Because they don't have canoe, they don't have anything that will make them come, and even the carts that they use to take the fuel, they don't have some. So, and I was advising the MC that I've heard that they said the boy is in his camp. So if a person is in your camp, see their welfare, give them something to do, and let them stop going to the fuel station, doing whatever that was what I was saying. I was advising the MC.
So your concerns were that these people that were given the premix fuel, they are not fishermen,
yes,
they don't own canoes,
yes,
and ordinarily they do not qualify to be given a premix fuel.
Yes, sir.
So what ensued thereafter?
After that, I was in the office doing my daily job as I did.
So you were on air?
I'm on air, doing my show as it is. And
tell me how the entire thing unfolded. They rushed
into the studio, and they said, we are here. We have come. We heard you calling our name, so we are here. Then they started beating me.
What kind of beating did they subject you?
The papajache hit me on the side of my chin, and the other one also hit me on the side of my chin, and the other one, which is Kung Fu, he pulled my leg from the seat, and everything which is on my head was, even the off my shirt and everything, and they beat me from inside to here. So I hit my head on this thing.
So this is the studio.
Yeah,
this is the transmission room.
Yeah.
So they brought you here. They pulled you from the studio
and brought me here. What I heard, one boy was saying, let's bring him out. Then they brought me here and did what they want to do, and they went away.
Why are you convinced that these people are from the camp of the MC?
I know them.
So why is it that if you know them, have you reported them to the police?
Yes, yesterday we did that.
Have you heard that any arrest has been made?
No, so far.
So after beating you, what what has become of you? Did you go to the hospital?
Yes, I went to the police. People came here. They took some things, what happened here, we told them, and they took me to their office and they gave me a form to go to hospital. And yesterday I went to the hospital and there was no doctor, but they assured me that today they will see to everything and it will go over.
Right, now let's turn our attention to our earlier story about the mayhem and the rampage at Nkoranza, because my colleague Ohimin Taria is on standby to bring us up to speed with some updates on that particular development. Hello, Ohimin, if you can hear us. Hello. Right, Ohimin, if you can hear us, what is the situation as of this morning?
Yes, it's a normal day, as it's a normal day anywhere in any part of the country, just that the difference here in Nkoranza township is the fact that there's increased police presence on the main streets of Nkoranza. Police and military team are now patrolling, and they've also stationed themselves at vantage points, providing security and ensure that people who are going about their normal duty and their lawful duties can do same without any hindrance. The situation is a bit different from what we witnessed yesterday as the youth clashed with the police here. This is the main Nkoranza Ejura road. Behind me is where the police have pitched camp, and it's very close to the municipal police headquarters that was attacked yesterday by the youth. And now what police has done here is to block one of the road here, the lanes here. So what it means is that motorists who are applying this particular route will have to change their route. There's also another police team at the entrance of the community. So when you get there, the team will search you and then give you a free passage when they are convinced that there's nothing incriminating on you. But within the township here, it's a normal day for residents who are just awakened after yesterday's incidents to see that indeed the number of police and the military officers here has increased. And I haven't seen any of the groupings as we witnessed yesterday. Now you see people walking in and out and going about their normal duties here in Nkoranza.
Saying is that there is enhanced security presence, but regarding the young people who are livid and agitated, can you tell us, have you gathered any intelligence of any likely plotting today, or their concerns have been put to rest?
It is too early, and I must say you can't also predict the agitated youth. Just yesterday, just after a meeting with the paramount chief of Nkoranza, and the chief promised the support of the traditional authorities to ensure speedy investigations into the death and killing of Albert Kwesi Donko. The youth promised to abide by the rule of law and ensure that they don't go contrary to the words of Nananom. But few minutes after that meeting, then they started burning car tires on the street and then mounted roadblocks just in front of the municipal police headquarters. And aftermath of that is what has led to the presence of the heavy police and military presence here. The youth managed to ransack the police station to the extent that they freed some of the inmates in police custody, forcing police officers to run and then for their lives and free the scene. So you can't predict the youth that probably with the presence of the police and the military team here, that should put the issue to rest. Let me also confirm that even when the police reinforcement team arrived from Techiman, the youth will not even budge. They faced the police team squarely by throwing stones, whilst the police team also fire warning shots and then live rubber bullets on them. They were not perturbed. They continued to stood their grounds and to face the police officers. So for you to suggest that probably because of the presence of the police military team, that should put the story to rest, it will be too early to be considering and to be talking about that.
Right, thank you very much, Ohimi Nteya, for those updates. In the course of the newspaper review, we'll cross over to you for further details regarding this particular development. Thank you. Let's now jump on to other stories where the embattled leader of the PNC, David Apasera, and his faction have debunked the notion of their suspension from the party. This follows a decision of another faction of the party to suspend them and 13 other executives over the misappropriation of funds. Mausi Numon has more in the following report.
PNC is now a party of terrible internal wrangling. Due to many confusion within the party, a faction of the party on May 12, 2022 concluded that Messiah's David Apasera and Moses Daniba have embezzled some amount of money as well as violating Article 14A of the PNC's constitution.
We had a NEC meeting in Kumasi based on a report one of our member, that was the General Secretary, brought up that there is some money that was missing within the party. That is, I think, 150,000 Ghana cedis.
Meanwhile, a different faction of the party led by David Apasera and Moses Daniba have demystified the statement made by Bala Salahu Maikankan, the self-acclaimed leader of the party now. He claims the call for their suspension by Maikankan and his faction was unlawful.
They don't have that capacity because it wasn't a neck. They who were sitting there, we had announced their suspension before the neck day. At a press conference when the standing committee approved of the disciplinary committee report, we announced it through the press that the Kumasi meeting was null and void. And so Janet was still on suspension. 6 more others were suspended. And they have gone to sit down there, and they were the people sitting at the high table and chairing the meeting. But I'm declaring to you, upon the basis of the Constitution and upon the mandate handed over to us by the National Delegate Congress, the last 30th of September 2020, that we are the legitimate leaders of this party, and we still are.
He also debunked claims of funds embezzlement.
The first NEC we called in 2021, February 27th. That was when our treasurer read out the financial report. And Janet, who is going around and making noise that we have embezzled money, didn't raise a finger against it. In fact, the treasurer got an applause. And we are saying that, look, we have an audited account. That's why we've given you that. And that's why I read from the minutes of the 27th February NEC meeting, 2021, so that you will know that these issues were addressed before now.
Leadership of the party has, however, initiated processes to restrain Bala Salahu Maikanka and Janet Nable's faction of the party from holding themselves as party executives. Mausi Numo's report for JoyNews.
Here's where we draw the curtains on today's edition of the AM News. My name is Pakwesi Shandov. The show continues, of course, with Benjamin and Bernice.
Let's get it on with our news review. Now, we'll be joined shortly by Dr. Kwame Asah-Sante of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. But wherever you are, thank you for making the time to join us. Let's start with the Daily Graphic newspaper. Togo opens border. That's on page 16. You know, we've had our own issues in terms of reopening our borders as far as, you know, economic activity and more are concerned, opening our borders to travel, land borders, so to speak. But other West African neighbors have not necessarily done so. Well, we now hear that Togo has opened its side of the border with Ghana as of midnight yesterday. This comes more than 50 days after Ghana had reopened its land borders. Now, the Daily Graphic visited some of the border towns, including Aplao, Akanu, and Kpoglu Segbe border to ascertain how business was picking up in those places. Now, though the border has been opened, both sides of the frontier remained desolate with little human movement and commercial activities across the border. Of course, we know that now that both sides have started it, it will take some time before it goes back to what it was before. I remember being at the border some years back. It was a hub of activity. And on the back of COVID-19 and the shutdowns, well, only time will tell how things will go and when things will return to the levels they were at before. Punish developer for pulling down Bulgarian embassy building, Seoul Inquirer recommends. That story as well on page 16 makes for some interesting reading. And some have been saying we shouldn't shield anybody, party member or not, whether with the MPP or not, who may be complicit in this entire razing of that building belonging to the Bulgarian embassy. So the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abu-Jinapor, has written to the Attorney General to advise him, and Daily Graphic, advise as a verb, not as a noun. This should not be found in our. Advise him on sanctions to be imposed on a private developer who demolished a building at the Bulgarian embassy. According to him, the recommendation of the Seoul Inquirer, who looked into the demolition, had some legal implications, and so it was important to get advice from the AG. Now, in a 149-page report, the Seoul Inquirer, Justice Kwesi Anto Oforiatta, recommended that the private developer Jojo Hagan be sanctioned and be made to compensate the Bulgarian embassy. A statement from Mr. Jinapor last Monday said the ministry had accepted in full the recommendations of the Inquirer. So we await now the implementation of all of this. But giving you a bit of a background, if you missed the story, the Bulgarian embassy located at Kakramadu Road, plot number 10, East Cantonment in Accra, was demolished by a private developer in 2017. And there are matters that followed through from there. NACOC seizes drugs at KIA where? That is on page 26 of the paper. And this major one, Achimota forest intact. Jinapor assures nation peripheries revert to Owu family. Before I get into that one, let me say a very good morning to Dr. Kwame Asante, who joins us for our conversation. Doc, welcome aboard. Good morning.
Good morning, my brother. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for making the time to be with us. I hope you're
sorry
well
for a little delay. Yeah.
We totally understand. We totally understand. We're grateful. Let's start with the Achimota forest saga. Now, the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abdullahi Jinapor, has dismissed reports making the rounds that the forest reserve is being sold. He said the Achimota forest would not be sold and remained as it was, adding that the government would continue to reforest and develop it into a true forest reserve to serve Accra and the people of Ghana. But all of this has come up because of an executive instrument. Following the publication of the Forests, that is Cessation of Forest Reserve Instrument 2022, EI 144, there have been reports, especially on social media, among other outlets, that the Achimota forest was being sold. But as of now, we're told that there are going to be some reversals. The peripheries of the family, the Owu family, from which the state got that patch of land, the peripheries will be returned to them, but the rest of it remains a forest reserve. Your quick reaction, I'm sure you followed the media interactions and all. How do you react to this?
Yes, I am happy to hear this, that government is making frantic effort to make sure that the forest is kept and reserved for better purposes. It is good. If you go to certain countries, you find even at the heart of the city forest, and sometimes even game. We can mention places such as Kenya, Cote d'Ivoire, and all that. So I don't see why Ghana cannot emulate the same, example and develop to the best. My worry, though, is that sometimes the way we acquire these things creates a lot of problems that later the original owners will come back and then come and demand things that are due them. We pray and hope that our leaders will take note of these things, that they should do the proper acquisition so that families are not disadvantaged. Those who give their lands for such projects for the state are not disadvantaged. And of course, government also must protect, forests that are preserved for game and all that. These things are a source of revenue for the state. And if we are crying for money, this is one means by which we can develop and make it better for the state to have that. Check Kenya. You see at the city, you have the game, the Kenya, park. Beautiful. You are there, you take pictures, and you go and then see things for yourself. Why can't Ghana take an example like that and then emulate and develop it for our people?
So definitely something we have to preserve. And there are those who have said that, if we were to turn that into another concrete jungle, for example, looking at the expanse of it, it would open the Jowlus and the Abelinkpes and other parts to flooding and the rest. So this is something that we really ought to look at cautiously. And thankfully, the rhetoric coming from government is that it is going to be maintained. So ecological gains there. Let's quickly get into this story, and I am linking it to the terrorist threat. We've heard from the National Security Ministry and what they say about a very imminent terrorist threat, how we all ought to be very, very, very vigilant. We have seen very disturbing videos, unconfirmed, of people spilling over into Togo, and I'm talking about terrorists, Boko Haram and others. We have heard from a deputy defense minister who has said that all is not well. I'm linking that to the story on page 25 of the Daily Graphic. Chief Imam advises youth against acts of terrorism. And the National Chief Imam, Sheikh Osman Nuh Sharabutu, has advised the youth not to allow themselves to be used to cause violence in their communities in the midst of rising cases of terrorism in the West African sub-region. Quote, "Do not allow characters who would come to you in the cloak and gown of Muslim clerics to incite you into acts of extremism and violence," he said. He also called on Muslim clerics to educate their students in the makaranta or madrasas on the dangers of terrorists and terrorism. Continuing from there, he says, Muslim teachers must be careful in how they educate the populace, particularly students, in respect of messages and interpretations that engender or give rise to violent extremism and radicalism. That is the chief imam. Your thoughts on this and the caution as well that churches, mosques, and other places of worship ought to be more vigilant because the terrorist threat is right at our doorstep.
I'm happy to hear this thing from the national imam because time and again, extremists hide behind religious groups and then inflict pain, unnecessary pain on nationals of states. All right. So I'm happy to hear this, especially cautioning teachers of Islam, clerics, and all that about the message that they send out. People hide sometimes behind Islam and do things that are not Islamic. Islam is for peace forever. So anybody who teaches you saying that you can hide behind some message that is given to you to inflict pain on innocent people, you are not a Muslim. And that is exactly what the chief imam said. I salute him for that message. I hope it will go down, not only for Muslims, for every youth, because they are vulnerable. The little problem here and there, people advise them wrongly, that take arms, disturb your state. Look, that will not inure to their benefit. And I'm happy that the chief imam has set the ball rolling. Other religious groups should come on board and also preach the same message. And that there is no point destroying a state that one day you want to build. There's no point at all. I commend the security people, even though they have come out that, look, all is not well. And it's an honest admission. I salute them. But I know that in spite of all the difficulties that they face, over the years, they've been able to keep our state intact. It is my hope and prayer that they continue to protect us. But let us also protect them and protect the state by volunteering information to them. It is our, moral and legal duty that as citizens, we don't only enjoy from the states, but we also make our quota, contribute our quota to the development of this country. Let us all support the police, volunteer information, expose evil people in the country so that we'll make this place safe. But I know that the security people are on top of their game, but we must assist them. We must assist them.
We definitely must assist them. I have a curious question very quickly. We've reopened our land borders, and now the terrorist threat is even more potent. How do you see it as one who dabbles in international politics? When we've reopened, it's just about 50 days since we reopened our borders, and now the terrorist threat is so potent. What would you suggest in that regard?
You saw the criticisms that were leveled against government for closing the borders. People's livelihoods were cut because of that exercise and a whole lot.
Right.
And
so
then the
economic situation came to the fore, but now we have a security situation on our hands.
Yes. Government said, slow down, let us find solution. And now that they've opened, I know that the security people have done their homework. They knew that we're going to have difficulties like that. But trust you, or trust me, you know that these people are on top of their game. I know that they will be able to face the difficulties. But as I've said already, we need to support them because there's no point that we could close the borders forever. We needed to open the borders to allow economic transactions to take place and also build up the solid economy for the people of this country. So for me, it's not a wrong decision that government took. Let us remember that government reflected upon it for a very long time. And then I'm sure that the security also people give the government the green light. We all have to make sure that we put our hands on the deck and then assist and make security system work better. Without our support, I'm not sure the security people will succeed. So let us all know that it is not the responsibility of government or security people alone. We owe it a duty to ourselves and our state that we are ready and forever ready to support them to make this country stable.
Let's continue on the security tangent. The Ghanaian Times this morning. National security warns public to be vigilant of terrorist threats, and following a letter cautioning churches, places of worship, this is what was said. We are making a strong appeal for heightened vigilance in areas of mass gatherings, especially at public places of entertainment and worship, such as churches and mosques. The employment of guards, security, gadgets, lighting of the areas surrounding public places would all help, but nothing beats the vigilance of each of us individuals taking personal responsibility and looking out for each other or one another. And that's the point, Doc, isn't it? We must be looking out. We must move from the, these people are strangers. Okay, they're in our community. We must all be vigilant, because that person you see acting strangely, that person who may even be in your community, you've never seen the person before. All of a sudden, the person is there. That person who drops some backpack somewhere in some shopping mall or whatever. Let's be curious, because these could very well be terrorists, and we have to stay on guard. Doc, you want to come in with something?
I believe in that because vigilance is the price of liberty. We can never be free if we ourselves are not vigilant. We need to be vigilant. We need to support the police with information.
Right.
We need to make sure that we question people who we think that they are suspicious characters within our community. Sometimes we relax on these things, but it's time that we stood up and do the right things.
Let's stay on that front. Nkoranza youth attack police over death of 28-year-old trader. I'm sure you've seen the footage. This is turning into another ejra. It is escalating. This morning we interacted with our colleague Ohiming Tewia, and it doesn't appear that this matter is going to die a natural death, though there were interventions by the police, reinforcements had to be called in. But if you asked me, I would say that we've not learned much. We saw what happened in Ejra, how matters escalated. Now there are injuries, one person at least suspected dead, people being treated after even Akwesi Arnold, had lost his life. I would have thought that on the back of what the youth had said, that we are going to, we're not going to take this lying down, and if something is not done soon, we're going to demonstrate and all of that. There would have been more in terms of security, boosting security in the community. No, the police were repelled. Some had to run away before there were reinforcements. When you look at what is happening in Nkoranza, do you agree with me that it's reminiscent of Idra and that maybe we've not learned much?
Yes, my good brother. I'll be glad if you can give me a gist of what happened yesterday. I was very busy. I didn't follow the news. Just a gist of it, and then I can comment on it.
The youth had threatened that they would spill onto the streets to demonstrate. That actually happened. They blocked roads, and then they vandalized the municipal police station. Lots of vehicles. I mean, you can't see your TV now because you're interacting with me, but the municipal police station was vandalized. Vehicles there had their windscreens, windshields, and all of that smashed. You can see, for those of you watching, some of them, burning tires on the streets and all of that. I mean, almost exactly the picture we saw in Idra. And it took the intervention of reinforcements to restore calm. But that is just calm for now. The people want justice on the back of what has happened to this young man that now, per a statement from the police, supposedly was dabbling in armed robbery, with the people saying, no, that is not true. In fact, this gentleman, we are told, had contracted a 5,000 Ghana cedi loan just for his business. So a lot of back and forth and information that did not come timelessly from the police, and now we find ourselves where we are. Doc.
It's a very sad story, because this is not the first time. We hear this thing more often. So I would have thought that we'll do everything possible to stem the tide. But unfortunately, events have taken a different turn, and we are in this state. Going forward, I think that if we want to exercise our rights as people of this country, which we are enjoined by the Constitution to do so, we must also bear in mind that we do that within the framework of the law. Once we cross the line, we are likely to have problems on our hand. The other issue, or the other bit, is also that the police must also know that they owe the state a duty of protection, that they protect us. So they must also be professionals and tread cautiously. Anytime they have such clashes, you end up having such casualties. And I'm not happy we are having this type of situation all the time. I believe that the police must have quick and then regular, professional education on these matters, how to handle, groups of that nature, so that at the end of the day, we save ourselves the trouble of what? Having properties destroyed, human lives taken away, and all that. It will not help anybody. I know that from time to time, the police walk their people through a lot of training and all that. It should be a continuous effort, and an effort aimed at what? Changing the behavior, or the strengthening the professional behavior of the police and all that. At the moment, let us see how the facts will come out, and then let's see how government and the police authorities will deal with that. But I will urge all the parties to exercise the highest modicum of restraint, so that we can have an amicable solution that will bring justice to the doorstep of everybody who is injured or who is hurt.
Well, let's move on from there. And Ghana home to 476,400 migrants. That's the IOM declaring, and it says the country is now an origin, transit, and destination for migrants. And this too is crucial, especially as we talk about the terrorist threat, because as we open up more to migrants, we are also opening ourselves up to some of these terrorist activities. The Daily Guide, by and large, reflects other stories that we've seen, so I'll just set it aside. Republic Press newspaper, headmaster and staff of A Basic School beg for classrooms. Trouble brews in PNC as Apasara blames Mahama for party's woes. And the Dufour hits the ground running as Mahama announces interest to lead the NDC. So it looks as though, as far as the NDC is concerned, John Dramani Mahama, former president, and Dr. Kwabena Dufour, former governor, Bank of Ghana, are going to be, well, front runners. We also know that Kojo Bonsu, if I got his name right, the former mayor of Kumasi, has expressed interest about wading into that as well. We'll see how it goes. But Ghana on high alert as national security warns of terrorist attacks. Nkoranza on fire. Cuts down number of ministers. I want your take on this, Doc. Cuts down number of ministers. Kwabena Japan charges government. Story on page 6. And Kwabena Ejeye Japan, a former general secretary of the NPP, has condemned unequivocally the practice of appointing innumerable ministers to positions in government. Not only is this practice, which has become the new normal for governments in this country, unnecessary, it is also contributing actively to the high cost of running the government machinery, Mr. Japan said on Asempa FM's Ekosi Sen yesterday. Submitting his views on the repeal of Article 71, Mr. Japan noted that indeed there were critical issues that bugged him. For instance, the cost of running government machinery. There's so much more to the story. You can grab a copy of Republic Press, turn to page 6. But from what Kwabena says, is it the way we should go as a country, Doc?
Certainly so. But I'm happy it's coming from Mr. Japan, because his government under President Kufuor also was accused of large government size, not as large as we have now, and then issue of what special assistant. At that time, that was more critical. It is true that you don't need great numbers to govern any state. It is not true. A few people who have what it takes to have their vision beyond their region or their ethnic group are the people you need them. People with a skill, people with knowledge, people with expertise, people with vision, and people who have this country at heart are those we want, and few people can do that. Let us remember that we have the bureaucracy, which is there to support all political office holders, irrespective of their background. Even if you have never studied anything regarding governance, they will assist you. So what is the point of getting more into the system where we need to pay them, we need to support them in terms of allowances and all that? It is a waste. You recall when this government took office and people criticized the government heavily. The government was very impatient that let us wait, we'll see the results. We all saw the results, and we saw the need to reduce the size. In recent times, we also saw when e-levy were struggling to get it through parliament. You saw a government position that they will cut down the size of government. That should not go away. They must make conscious efforts to cut down the size of government, and then we make some savings, because there's absolutely no point. But let us remember also that politicians do this as a way of rewarding party boys and foot soldiers. But we can tell them that in difficult times like this, you can't risk giving more appointment to people just to satisfy the interests of your party people. Once you do that, and people are also in difficult economic conditions, they keep quiet and vote you out of office. It is a time for government to reflect on this and then take this example seriously and work with it. Otherwise, they are likely to have consequence. When people vote, they vote them out of office.
Let's wrap this paper with two interesting stories, and one that has been on my mind for a while. This one on page 9 of Republic Press. Correct legal discrepancy that allows children to consent to sex at age 16. Lawyer to Parliament. Now, Nana Yamfua Amwasechi, a legal practitioner, has admonished Parliament to consider amending part of the law which allows a child the right to consent to sex at age 16. This, she said, would help address the high rate of defilement cases being recorded in the country and reduce unwanted teenage pregnancy. So what does the law say? Act 29, that is Ghana's Criminal Offences Act 1960, pegs the age of sexual consent at 16 years, the minimum age at which an individual is considered legally old enough to consent to participate in any sexual activity. However, a child is said to have been defiled when they have achieved or attained the age of 16 years and below. So you see where the discrepancy lies. You can consent at age 16, but you are said to have been defiled if you are 16 and below. So where is it's a fine line. Again, the country's Children's Act and the Criminal Procedures Act Code. 1998, that is Act 30, set the legal age for marriage at 18. So why not just peg it all at 18? That is basically what is happening here. Do you have any quick reaction to that?
Yes. I think I support that call because there's a contradiction in there. Why don't you put all at 18 so that by 18 you are matured enough to take such an important decision in your life, and then a decision that can also cost you. So if you are matured enough to take that decision, you'll be very careful and handling some of these things very well. So I support the call, but Parliament must act quickly because we are getting a lot of cases in this direction, defilement and all that. Once we are able to do a good job here, we'll be able to save the young people who are going to lead this country forever.
The next story is also sex related, and I'm becoming a bit I don't even know what word to use. It's becoming mind-boggling. Men in Ghana, what is happening? I mean, so 45-year-old man slashes 56-year-old girlfriend with cutlass for denying him sex. And this is becoming rampant. Today, acid has been splashed on somebody, boyfriend, girlfriend related. Tomorrow, the person has been slashed. What is wrong with us? The Ebradunkwa Police Command in the Central Region is reportedly holding a 45-year-old man, simply identified as Bob, for slashing his 56-year-old girlfriend with a cutlass multiple times for denying him sex. The victim, Ikea Badua, is currently receiving treatment at the Ebradunkwa Government Hospital in the Central Region. According to starfm.com.gh, the bloody incident occurred at Abakrampa on Sunday, May 15, 2022, at around 1:30 p.m. Recently, there's this training institution in Cape Coast. A lady was brutally murdered, part of her body taken out. I don't want to go into the gory details. Her boyfriend has been arrested. I mean, I'm seeing too many of these, and I'm wondering, what is wrong with us? Doc?
There are a lot of factors, and it's a worrying situation. But one of the things that I've seen in this regard is lack of what? Socialization, proper socialization process. We start with the family education about the do's and don'ts so that children develop and become the best for society. More often than not, we have abandoned this and allow peers to come in and educate and then, misinform our youth and all that. It is also worrying that we are getting these stories almost all the time. And it appears to me that the state is not doing much in this direction. I am aware that the courts have not, abandoned their duty. They put people before court and these things are dealt with. But once we get reoccurrence of this, then it creates the impression that all is not well. We should be able to strengthen socialization process where the process of inculcating values in people are strengthened at the family level. We go on to other agencies such as the school, the churches, the mosques. We strengthen them so that by the time you grow, you are well made of the norms and values of our society. You will not deviate. It is true that you have some individuals who will deviate from some of these things, but we'll be able to reduce the incidence to the barest minimum. We need to do that. The churches, the religious groups, society must help us in this direction because it is becoming one too many.
To wrap the entire conversation, two quick stories. The Finder, talking of society, state, society, failing children. And that is according to Bright Apia Executive Director, Child Rights International. And the point is that 2,791 have reported human rights infractions to SHRAJ in 2021 alone. Child Rights blames the lack of social and political commitment. And to wrap, the BNFT this morning, ECG's debt to IPPs hits $900 million. The independent power producers. Two quick stories to wrap. You can pick one and share your thoughts on it, Doc.
Yeah, when you look at the issue of children being abused, human rights of children trampled with impunity and all that, it tells you that, look, we are not getting it right. we were among the first countries in the world to jump into children's law and whatnot. If you follow stories, you hear abuse of children, attack on children, and these vulnerable groups don't get the necessary support that they deserve from the state. It is a very sorry story. I recall when I was the president of International Journalists for Children's Rights, we encountered a lot of these cases, and we still have them persisting. I want to believe that this time around, we want to make it even a manifesto issue so that we can pin down political parties and see their commitment towards some of these things. Because, look, you can never build any solid society when you have human rights abuses, not only against women and children, but even the whole society. Look at the recent report about the state, the U.S. State Department on human rights violations and all this. If you read from 1992, you come across gory tales of some of these violations. I think the institutions that are tasked to do this thing must sit up and work. Otherwise, we as citizens must demand from politicians through manifesto, so that when they don't execute or implement them, we throw them out, simply put.
Thank you, Doc, for joining us for another beautiful morning. And of course, we pray for Ghana in these times for the very best. Wish you the best of the day, sir.
I'm grateful.
All right. And that's how we sew it up for the news review. But up next, we bring you sports. There's going to be talk about Kumasi Asante Kotoko, and we'll bring you sporting details from the foreign front as well. Stay.
Good morning to you. Thank you for staying on the AM show with Bernice and Benjamin. And we're starting with our big issues today. We're very heavy on security. We'll start off with the National Security's press release on the increasing threats of terrorism. And Benjamin later will come up with the Nkoranza issue, which has spiraled out of control, unfortunately. We understand there's calm there this morning, but what we saw last night, based on the conversation we had with Ohiming, Teria, in the morning, we were told that the youth had agreed not to embark on the protest, but later in the day, there was a U-turn. We want to find out from him why that.
But they had said they would embark on this protest. So that is where, again, I feel that maybe our intelligence didn't really work, especially on the back of what we saw in Ejura previously.
But remember that Ohiming had said that the youth leaders felt that some criminal elements were going to take advantage of the protest to create mayhem, and so they were going to
MCE said.
So they were going to hold on with that until they were going to announce later when they were going to have the protest. So we'll be having that conversation. But let's start on the national level. Security Minister Albert Kandapa is asking you and I to be vigilant in the wake of increased terrorist attacks in the sub-region. According to him, the activities of terrorists have become prevalent in recent times, and there's a need for all citizens to pay closer attention to their personal and communal security. So this was released in a statement sometime last night, and in the on the fourth point, Benjamin, we are told that the appeal is being made because there is a good reason to believe that the terrorists operating within the sub-region have Ghana as a target.
Right.
Yeah. So we have, very qualified persons to have this discussion with us. We have Professor Kwesi Enin, who is Director, Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping and Training Institute, and we've also got Mr. Bombande with us also for that particular discussion. So let me start with you, Prof. Enin. First, grateful to have you all here. In that statement, we are told that there's enough reason to believe Ghana is a target, but we are not told why. Why will Ghana be a target? for these terrorists?
Yes, I'm terribly sorry. And I think there are multiple reasons why. But I want to go back to something very fundamental that also exposes why we will become a target. You know, there are two statements, one from the National Security Coordinator and the one that has come out from Mr. Kandapa.
Yeah.
The phraseology in both statements are different. In the statement from the National Security Coordinator, it is an emotional appeal and a rehashing of some of the things that have happened. And that statement mentions particularly Professor Kofi Awono, which I think was most unfortunate, unethical, and unacceptable. Because it did not seek to only caution us, it sought to play on our emotions. This is a hard business where seeking to use an emotional basis to make an argument for vigilance is wrong, is faulty, and actually goes against the principles and the values inherent in the National Security Strategy document. That document, under its subheading, says that the National Security Framework seeks to secure or to establish a secure Ghana with regional, continental, and global reach and influence. You don't get that global reach and influence by looking at the threats that are around you and seeking to get public support and buy-in by playing on their emotions. And I would appeal that an apology is made to Professor Kofi Awono's family for using their hurt and their pain in such an unprofessional manner. The National Security Strategy document also talks about prioritizing and promoting effective decision-making through an institutional system that will ensure an integrated and efficient coordination. Now, we have two documents. You will see from document 2, the one from Mr. Kandapa, sober, reflective, appealing, dialogic, informative, saying, this is where we are. Please be cautious, but please, let's work together. I would have expected that there would be some numbers within those letters. That if you see something, say something. Inform, don't touch, don't do this. So I'm hoping that today or tomorrow, there will be a set of specific do's and don'ts that ordinary citizens will look out for. Let's say you see what a box of bottled water, it's covered. You think it's water, but you don't know what is inside that box. You know, just a bottle of water that is half drunk, standing somewhere. You know, so I think it's contingent on those who are issuing these statements, or also to give us clues, guidance as to what to do and how to behave. Is the threat real? It's been real for the past 10 years. Okay, so there must be some specific indications that has led to this. But this is not the first time such a cautionary letter has been released. However, I think it's important that it has been done. It's coming closer and closer and closer to us. We are not too sure whether they are here already. I mean, the borders are fairly weak, so in pleading for some guidance, we need to get border communities highly sensitized. We need to get those who rent single rooms or chamber and halls highly sensitized. We need to go back into our ghettos and the cover agents, playing mad men, mad women, all sorts of things will need to be done. But I think for the first time, there's a certain awareness that the cocoon that we have had around ourselves might be breached. So this is a very welcome caution to the public, but it's terribly unfortunate that we have two statements. That is what those who seek to hurt us would use to say, but I mean, two different agencies that seek to resist us have brought out two different statements. And I'm not too sure if you remember a couple of years ago, there were some concerns about the nature of the relationship and the partnership between the ministry and the coordinator. And I am hoping that with this new national security strategy document, the collaboration, the partnership, the sharing of information, and then speaking with one voice as to the nature of the threat and how to prevent, respond, and hopefully degrade it is done in such a manner that it shows a nation that is resolute and its institutions that speak with one voice.
Thanks for your initial comments, Prof. I must mention that we've also been joined by Dr. Vladimir Ntwidanso, who is an international relations expert for this conversation. So let me come to you, Mr. Momande. We've heard from Professor Enin, who's raised some concerns about the two different statements that we've seen on this particular issue. But for you, back to my initial question, over the years, we've heard these threats. Thankfully, Ghana hasn't seen any attacks, as we've seen in neighboring countries like Burkina Faso. Why will Ghana be a target? Someone may ask.
Thank you, and good morning to my good friend and name, Professor Enin, and to all your viewers. First of all, when we appreciate the sub-regional geopolitical environment in which we live, we are never immune, nor are we an island. And the early warning signs as violent extremism and terrorism spread across the West Africa sub-region, particularly with intensity in the Sahel region. The evidence was clear that the shift was towards the littoral, or generally speaking, the coastal states. And it is these early warning signs that led to the initiative that generally has been referred to as the Accra Initiative, in which the Gulf states have sought to prepare in advance, or if you would put it, have that type of state capacity and readiness to respond. And I think the emphasis specifically to us is when you look at our neighboring states, they are fighting, or their counter-terrorism strategy is to fight off what has already taken place in terms of attacks. We find ourselves in a unique space in which, precisely because the attack has not happened yet, our mode or our strategic thinking, preparation has to anchor on prevention and underline prevention. And the points that Professor Enin has been raising specifically speak to prevention. And what that means is the issues he raised about coordination and coherence. So for me, he has spoken already about the internal capacities for effective coordination. I will not belabor that, but I would go a step further and say now that the National Security Ministry has provided that lead, what we need to speak to is about the coordination and coherence from the agencies of the state. For example, the points that Professor Enin made about breaking this down in terms of the education or awareness or civic education of citizens. We want to see the Information Services Department bringing this to the level of our communities and spreading the message. When we were growing up, those yellow and green vans, when you saw them with their microphones, driving slowly through a community and educating people on a particular issue, whether it is health, whether there is vaccination that is imminent, it was viewed, understood, and taken seriously by the communities, beginning with the elders and the chiefs. So can we see that in terms of the type of awareness and education? Let me quickly point to the recent the attack over the past weekend in Togo. They even dug on the road leading to the police post that was attacked. They buried an improvised explosive device. And that was meant to even slow down the response from the Togolese military. Now, when we talk about bringing the education down to the level of our communities, what this means is, if in a village or in a community near a border area, you saw a group of people digging around one of the roads, whether it's a dead road or whether it's a paved road, the point Professor Enin made is, if you see something, you say it. So the community should not just go to bed and treat it ordinarily. They should be curious. They should try to find out, what are you doing in our area, in our space? But we will expect that there is an outreach to the communities to be able to help them to do that. And the summary of it is, the responsibility of the state to protect, in terms of the protection of the civilian, is then complemented in the preventive mechanisms by engaging with the citizens, the communities. And I think that that is what would help us so much to continue to prevent, so that there is no attack. Because the moment one attack happens, our language is going to change about how we are fighting terrorism. But we have the opportunity to continue to sustain prevention. And that for me is very critical.
Thank you, Mr. Bomande. Let me take Dr. Vladimir Ntridanso's initial comments. Thank you for joining the program, sir. So let's try and get into the mind of these terrorists. What is in it for them? Why would they attack Ghana? Is it just to make a political statement, or there's more to it than that? Hello, Doc?
But if you look at the West African sub-region, you would realize that terrorism is festering and festering fast. From Mali, the lower portions of Algeria, all the way to Niger, Chad, Nigeria. And research has shown that 70% of all terrorist activities in Africa is in West Africa, 70%. For the past 3 months, more than 5,000 attacks, several people killed and injured, several things destroyed. What is more worrying is that the casualties, 77% of all casualties are non-combatants, ordinary people like you and me. It would mean that the terrorists would want to just get more territory. And of late, terrorism has become more lethal, more cellular. And the cellular nature of terrorism is that they are always looking for a place where they can either hide and continue their activities, or attack the place. So Ghana, no matter how peaceful we think we are, an island in the West African sub-region, we shouldn't think that the terrorists are not interested in Ghana. They may look at Ghana as a haven where they can hide quietly and be continuing their activities in other areas of the sub-region. And so if you look at also the downward trend from Burkina Faso, but the last time they attacked, they were only about 1.5 kilometers from our border. And if you check our tri-border with Togo and Burkina, where that incident also happened a few weeks ago, you would realize that apparently they are looking for more places where they can continue their activity. So it's not that it's Ghana for Ghana's sake. And I think the warning is very, very important. We should have started this thing long ago, some 9-10 years ago, when one of our compatriots decided to join ISIS and started sending messages for recruitment of Ghanaians. We should have known that terrorism does not mean an attack only, but recruitment, funding, etc., etc. And it's also linked with other transnational organized crimes, gun running, narcotics, kidnappings, etc., etc. So as soon as we were aware that some Ghanaians were interested in fighting for ISIS, we should have sounded this bell, this alarm bell long ago, for us to be vigilant, for us to be aware. Awareness about security or awareness about terrorism in Ghana is very low. So I'm very happy that the Ministry of National Security has finally given the alert and warning us. And okay, people are saying, why did they say it is churches and the malls and that sort of thing? Obviously, yes. I've already said that terrorism today is interested in lethality, intensive lethality. The more they kill, the more they're happy, and the more they make a message. And the places where they can kill more people are where people congregate a lot. The malls, the churches, the mosques. And that is why the security minister is telling us that we should be very careful about these places. And we have CCTV cameras. If you watch videos on terrorist attacks, you will realize that these are places they are more interested in. The Westgate Mall in Kenya, Colombo, the Catholic Church. You could see that these are the places where they can get enough people to kill to satisfy their ego or whatever it is. So for me, it's long overdue. It's something, terrorism is in Ghana already. It is here. Once you have people going from Ghana to join ISIS, then it means the terrorists have been able to penetrate and they are getting recruits from here. We all remember when you guys from the media let us know about the 3 beautiful girls who were going to be wives of ISIS and who were apprehended or stopped at Boku. These incidents show that we are already inside the net of terrorists. They have an eye on Ghana long ago. Why are they recruiting from here? Where do they know? And then Abdul Mutalab, who was able to buy his ticket from Ghana and his attempt to detonate a bomb on an American airline. You know, all these things show that Ghana's territory is infested with some levels of terrorism. And this warning is very, very important.
Doc, Benjamin here. I just want some clarity. When you look at worlddata.info, the data they put together as of last year, 2021, they said that in terms of a terrorist threat, owing to our uniqueness when it comes to democratic practice and all of that, it was basically insignificant, the threat to Ghana when it comes to terrorist activity. What exactly has changed and why is the threat so potent now?
I've always maintained the fact that when we have data, the inferences from the base, that is the premises, the conclusion must be very intact. The intervening variables must show that from the premises, the conclusions are intact. The very fact that in the past, we had a very high level of whatever, and because Ghana is a democratic, whatever it is, we are safe, and that doesn't mean that terrorists will not strike. Whoever ever thought in this world that Al-Qaeda could strike America? 19 people entered America quietly, seized American planes. It is the worst disgrace for America that 19 terrorists entered America, 16 intelligence organizations in the U.S. None of them was able to pin them down. And they were able to hijack 4 American planes and use them as missiles against America. This shows that no matter what your statistics may be, the inference from that statistics to an occurrence must be such that the intervening variables should be able to assess that A will happen, B will happen. But for me,
just a quick intervention. Does that mean that we can never be prepared enough for a terrorist attack? And especially in our position where we've never had the experience, so to speak, a large-scale terrorist attack, does that mean we find ourselves in a very precarious position?
My answer straight away is no, just because of what I have said. Has America not prepared enough against terrorist attacks? But they had it. Belgium, they had it. France, they had it. The point is that the terrorists are always one step ahead. And they feed on your mistakes, your non-awareness, ungoverned spaces, unresolved historical differences where there are internecine feuds and that sort of thing. They could easily exploit Boku or exploit Dagbon. Intentionally maybe support one of the sides, as if it is, say, Andani or Abudu, which is fighting hard and harder. You may not know that it's an Al-Qaeda affiliate, which is trying to, and when they get the hold, then they declare themselves that we are affiliated to this or to that. Al-Shabaab did the same thing. And now they have been able to even move staff force to Mozambique, just because there were enclaves in Mozambique that were receptive for them. The same thing, Kenya. Everywhere that terrorists have struck, it's not because the country is too ripe, but then when there are incidents where they can exploit, in our case, there are several things we have been warning government about all the time. You go to dollar power, and you can see that if they are able to settle in dollar power, Ghana is dead. But yet, we haven't done anything about dollar power yet. You know, I hope you know what I'm talking about dollar power in Ghana.
Yes.
It's virtually an ungoverned space. You know, and then these internecine troubles that we have in Boku and other places. I tell you, one organization, let's say Jinim or Al-Qaeda itself, can support one side and fight, and you wouldn't even understand how the fight has heightened. All of a sudden, they get a space and they settle. Once they've settled, then they declare, we are called this and this organization. We are affiliated to, say, ISIS or Al-Qaeda or something else.
Right.
And then they have settled already, and then they start spreading from there. So those receptive areas that can have them here, we need to be very, very careful and nip them in the bud.
All right.
And that's why this awareness is very important.
Doc, just hold for me. Let me rope in Prof as well, Professor Enning. So we've cited some videos in recent times that raise a lot of eyebrows, though unconfirmed, though we cannot independently confirm. Videos purporting that militants, Boko Haram and the rest, may be entering Togo. And from there, especially as they are a neighboring country, we would be on the radar. Link that to, when you go to gov.uk, the United Kingdom's or the British government's portal, and the threat of terrorism. This is what they have to say on their portal about Ghana as it stands now. Terrorist attacks in Ghana can't be ruled out. Attacks could be indiscriminate, including in places visited by foreigners. Of course, they would always look at their interest. Terrorist groups associated with Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, that is Akim, Islamic State of Libya and Islamic State West Africa, ISWA, present a threat in the region. These groups have demonstrated capability and intent by mounting attacks against security forces and civilians in several countries. They mentioned Burkina Faso recently and Mali. While there have been no recent attacks in Ghana, you should remain vigilant, particularly in northern border areas and in busy public locations, including beach resorts, hotels, cafes, restaurants, and places of worship across the country. That is their travel guide for their citizens. But it is reflective, isn't it, of the potency of the threat against Ghana?
Well, it's also reflective of the very narrow national self-interest. But before I do that, I want to make a point that my brother Nkoranza made about ungoverned spaces. There are no such places as ungoverned spaces. I think the fundamental discursive issue relates to what kinds and what governance mechanisms are desirable in any given landscape. So he mentions Accra dollar power. There are governance mechanisms in Accra dollar power in which the people there manage their own systems, sometimes in collusion with those who have to prevent and establish the authority of the state. The same thing is with Tenga, where you see hundreds of West Africans going to mine every morning and coming back into town every evening. You see in that axis a lot of towns in which there's cattle rustling, all forms of organized crime, human trafficking. You know, they are not ungoverned. They have particular forms of governance that it's our responsibility to seek to understand, so we can also design the appropriate intervention mechanisms to bring them under control or under the purview of the state. Now, the issue about Togo and the fact that they are there, you know, sometimes I worry about the superficiality of how we grab on to, you know, innocuous facts. Let me give some background to the Togo issue. Togo has had a long-standing simmering tensions that began from old Nasingbe Enyadema's time, in which some of the political opponents went to Germany because, as you know, Togo and particularly the Bavarian state in Germany have been very close, in which the leader of Bavaria, Joseph Strauss, used Togo as his hunting ground. Subsequent to those refugees coming back from Togo, from Germany, their mastery over French was very poor. So they were excluded, they couldn't get jobs. Some of them subsequently went to Yemen, where they were radicalized and over time have been infiltrating into the larger West African state. This is information I've shared with some people who matter, probably close to about 5 years ago, and cautioned to watch out for the Togolese space because this was going to happen. So Togo is nothing new. It's been bubbling, gradually expanding, and that group from Yemen is tapping into the narcotics trade from Peru, Colombia, and Bolivia, okay, that passes through Togo. So first, they have the money, they have the ideology, they have the determination, and they are now ready to strike a blow. Now, all this talk from our partners about AQO, ISIL, ISWAP, blah, 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 blah. I think the three of us on this program have screamed and shouted until our voices are hoarse. You know, sometimes I worry when they give this innocuous statements, the northern parts. Which part of the north?
We have had simmering issues in Boku, for example. Tamale has had its own share. How do you characterize those? Those are openings, right?
But there are problems in Aberdeen about the oil and the fishing. Is that an opening? Okay, I think it's important in doing this kind of assessment and analysis that we look at it from our own lived experiences and the challenges that we face. Yes, Boko is a problem, and we've consistently raised it, that small arms flows, the gangs dealing in motorbikes, the extensive smuggling of fertilizers, Okay, the stockpile management issues with some of the small mines, particularly the Shanxi mine. Okay, these are not new. We've said it. So the challenge here is that are those who need to listen on the Ghana side listening? Or they only listen when an external agency repeats the same thing that the three of us on your set have been repeating and rephrases them. And they realize my challenge. Okay, do we trust the assessments that we make ourselves, or the three of us must sell our knowledge to some foreign entity and then they will repackage it and they give it back? So yes.
So in other words, just quickly, you're suggesting that sometimes as experts, you give the intelligence, you prompt, but our people will not listen because you are one of us. A prophet is never, appreciated in his own home. That's basically what you're saying.
Well, yes, that's what I'm saying. But the good thing with the prophets, the three of us not being accepted in our own home, is that it makes us much more valuable. So the consultancy fees go up. So I mean, that is not a bad thing.
Okay.
But the northern areas, we've written about it, we have spoken about it. If you go across the northern boundaries, from Kulungugu, Paga, Hamlet, there are almost no borders, first and foremost. I mean, you see motorcycles coming back and forth, Aboboya crisscrossing, and people doing their business, even at the height of the COVID pandemic. I mean, I traveled across all those areas during that.
Okay.
So border security management is very key here. But more importantly, getting border communities to understand the challenge that they face. Because you remember a couple of months ago, a customs officer also was killed, his AK-47 stolen, but we didn't term that a terrorist attack. Okay, there have been instances across the whole of the country where military-style weapons have been seized, ammo seized, and the question is, what do these people want these guns for? Where did they get them from? Where are the leakages? So the National Commission on Small Arms, for example, has a critical responsibility and role in ensuring that the arms flows, are also controlled. Because we are not going to catch somebody crossing the border into Ghana, carrying ammunition and explosives, because we are a net exporter of these things. Because of the mining, the tools and the chemicals necessary for making explosives are in abundance. Okay, so if we are looking for or to arrest somebody crossing the international borders with some of these things, then we are looking in the wrong place. And that is why getting public buy-in, what to look out for and how to look for, is very key.
Okay. Let me bring in Emmanuel Bombande. I've been following the train of, trajectory, some of what all of you here have been saying. And one of what I see that Deutsche Welle, for example, picked some time back, just last year, has to do with some of the comments you made, Mr. Bombande, or talking about the fact that, look, we have an active civil society playing a role. There is citizens' engagement. We are religiously tolerant and all of that. And so these should put us in a good stead when it comes to the fight against terrorism. In today's Daily Graphic newspaper, we hear of the chief imam calling on the Islamic community, especially the youth, not to allow characters who would come in the cloak and gown of Muslim clerics to incite them into acts of extremism and violence. This is how far it has come. So the religious tolerance, the civil activity, and all of that, is it still putting us in a good stead when it comes to this fight against terror? Mr. Bombande.
Yeah, thank you so much. I would address your question by saying yes, but let me take just one quick step backwards to say that in the conversation this morning, you must keep in mind that the weakness or the incapacity of a comprehensive response to violent extremism and terrorism across West Africa has also a lot to do with the continuous active engagement of these terrorist groups that continues to make us in Ghana vulnerable. The point I'm just trying to make here is the response capacities of other states who are in our neighborhood also concerns us. And so the attitude that different nation states in West Africa have their own strategies, when we clearly see that some of those strategies have not worked, must also continuously inform us about the fact that their weaknesses in response has a lot to do with the increasing vulnerability of our nation state, Ghana. But having said that, it then links me to the point that the question that you just posed. And I want to frame that broadly in the recruiting space for terrorism. And what we need to do is, how are we continuously shrinking that space so that the terrorists do not come ahead of us and continuously recruit? And one aspect of that is the instrumentalization of religion. In other words, religion being used not on the basis of the values of the faith itself, such as Islam, but rather exploiting that religion and looking at young people particularly to instrumentalize them. And the instrumentalization obviously would begin with radicalization, and then later on the type of attacks, because these young people would have been instrumentalized. And so my response to you is yes, if we continuously nurture and promote social cohesion, what it means is the tolerance we must have amongst our faith communities, Islam, Christianity, and people of other faiths, becomes important so that that space from where you recruit is constantly under the microscope of the leadership of religious faiths to ensure the right type of education, in other words, the right interpretation of the holy books are brought to the level of people so that the wrongful interpretation of these holy books are not used to instrumentalize young people. So that will be one. But we cannot limit ourselves only to the tolerance of the respect we have in our religious communities. Right. We must translate that in our active interactions on a day-to-day basis, the way we speak. And it's important that leadership is aware of this. Sometimes when you make a statement that is public, in that statement, people read into it. Are you inclusive enough? Are you trying to exclude other people because of their faith or even in the community that they live? And are those stereotypes not contributing to the instrumentalization? So first of all, very quickly, we used to have the interreligious dialogue amongst the various heads of our faith communities. They should take the initiative to continue to engage and to continue to share the type of information that is required. But I would go beyond that and generally put this under everything that we do to promote social cohesion, to take out of the public space what are called in quotes hate speech. And that when you are a public figure in any form of leadership and your means, attitude, and forms of communication drives a wedge in the community because you denigrate others in the way and manner you speak, it can influence others to act and to behave negatively.
Right.
And I think all these things are a combination, and those combinations even include, and I think it was made by my two other colleagues, how do we have a mechanism, and I'm concluding on this one, what kind of mechanisms do we have in our governance systems in which policy can be articulated, but never the basis of increasing division amongst us. And that is why consultation and consensus building is important. Obviously, leadership in terms of the government of the day leads in policy decision making, but that does not mean it must be exclusive of the contributions of the others, including civil society, academia, and the other political parties, so that it becomes then a mechanism of political governance in which on the major policy issues, we are not divided. There is consensus going forward, and that helps to promote our social cohesion.
Mr. Bombande, Bernice will be coming in shortly. There's a barrage of questions we have for you on the same beat. But I'm sure you can draw the line between why I brought this up. Boko Haram supposedly making its way into Togo, and even recent events, what we saw in Sokoto, Deborah and the others. And then you would see Muslim clerics coming out to say, this is not Islam. What these things that are done are not a reflection of what we stand for. But the radicalization and the weaponization of religion that you speak of, that is what the chief imam is drawing up. But a quick one, just very briefly on this. In that same Deutsche Welle document, there was talk about our military. Today, as of now, whether in terms of intelligence, whether in terms of ammunition or munitions, how prepared is our military? Very briefly on that.
There must be a consistent capacity to be professional in how the military is responding, and I'll throw in there democratically. So in terms of the wherewithal, in terms of the firepower, in terms of the training, they might have all that. But how are they executing it in such a way that they are not creating what you would call the anger of people in the way and manner they are conducting themselves? And that also is important. So democratic policing then becomes part of the package in which the capacity of the military to respond is also taken into account, that they are protecting civilians and their human rights and not allowing their response capacities to increase radicalization. And I think that for us would be a contribution as well.
And gentlemen, your submissions, especially on the porosity of our borders and what we've been doing over the years to prevent a terror attack, makes me wonder if we've just, been spared by sheer luck, or we've been doing something right. Let me start with you, Dr. Vladimir. Hello, Doc?
We are spared by luck, and again by maybe geography, the terrain. If the terrain is not conducive, they won't come in. And as Bombande has said, there are a lot of things we have to do to have our own social cohesion. The border communities, in which way are we enticing them to be aware of their surroundings and the people who may be coming in at any time? It's very, very important. Whilst we win the war or the theft by our vigilance, we must also win the minds of people along the borders. That's why when Kwesi mentioned our border this thing, these days we have what we call integrated border management. This is the time the whole of West Africa must set up and know that the tri-border areas are prone to terrorist attacks. And therefore, integrated border management is the best way. That is, you have one border post where all the countries have their personnel over there, and they are integrated. Theft, or whatever they call it, customs, border security, and everybody is there. And it's about time we also started the integrated border management through our recruitment efforts. I gave a paper quite recently, and I was suggesting that nobody should be put into sex, immigration, and the like without having a qualification in language like French. So the French also will have people who have to know English before they are put there to make it possible for integrated border management. And I think we are all being, and especially you in the studio, you are talking strongly about preparedness. I insist that no amount of preparation in terms of kinetic preparation, that is capacity of the military, is enough to stop terrorism. Because they can strike at any time without the presence of the military. Other than that, why has Boko Haram, which is only about 3,500, why have they not been wiped out by a strong military force of about 200,000 of the Nigerian army? What about the U.S.? How were 20 people able to conquer the whole of the U.S., at least for a period? And so even though I'm not against that preparedness, that combative preparedness, which we are doing already, we have FOBs along our borders, which is very good of the government. That's this forward operating basis, where the battalions are there, always exercising and making sure that that forward presence alone is enough to deter. So that deterrence is good. But the best preparedness is our own awareness. Our own awareness, our ability to know what is coming, where is what, so that we can report. And then intelligence. The best way of fighting terrorism is intelligence gathering. And I beg the security agencies not to have intelligence, garnish intelligence in silos. That's what the U.S. did, and Al-Qaeda was able to attack.
Okay.
But intelligence sharing is very, very important.
Okay.
And we need to continue with that. I think Bobande also mentioned the interfaith discourses, which is very important. My church, the Presbyterian Church, is still doing that. I've taken part in this interfaith discourses several times, and that should be encouraged, seriously encouraged, because the speech characterization of the good books is what is allowing allowing religion to be weaponized. For example, some of the things we have been able to intercept, or some of the things that Al-Qaeda and ISIS have been using, are propaganda within the jihad. That if you kill one person, you go straight to heaven. If you kill one infidel, 6 virgins are waiting for you in heaven. I mean, there's nowhere in the Quran where you can find this, but it's going around. And then if you are the wife of a jihadist, you have all the kinds of whatever it is in heaven for you, and your children are prosperous. A whole lot of things like that. So this interfaith discourse is very, very important.
All right, Doc, I'll be coming back to you shortly on what's happening in Nkoranza. Because
kindly, if it is not now, it will be difficult because I need to get to the classroom.
Okay, apologies. Then let's do that while I have Mr. Bombande and Professor Inin hold on for me. So let me just take your quick thoughts on that. You sat on that committee that looked into the Idra incident. Yesterday, we saw a repetition of almost a repetition of what happened. The youth poured out onto the streets. Unfortunately, one person died and 9 others sustained injuries. Have we learned enough from the Idra committee sitting, considering what happened yesterday?
I don't think we have learned enough. This morning, I think Kwesi was interviewed, and he said it bluntly. Clearly, yes. The police haven't changed. We have not been able to change the modus operandi and their psyche on crowd control. Crowd control has always been a problem for our police and our security services, crowd control. But I want to add to that a very quick one. That is to say that our own socio-psychological attitude towards institutions also must change. That is, we are not constitutional, we are not institutional. There is so much indiscipline in our society in such a way that, I mean, if we don't stop those things, because if there is a problem with the police, it's a human institution. They can make mistakes and they can even commit blunders. There are other institutions that can check the police. There are other measures that can check the police. But to take the matter into our own hands and wanting to, override the police in their duties will always bring this kind of situation. I was very sad when I heard about several other deaths following the death of that guy in the cells. And it's like we haven't learned anything from the Idra, but we need to do more. The police service itself. I know there will be a police inquiry, or even themselves, and then maybe some other inquiry. But the public must also learn from past incidents and know our relationship to the police.
Doc, beyond what happened yesterday, I don't know if you've been following the story since it broke. We have been given a blow-by-blow account by the MP for the area on what he was told led to the death of Albert Donko. There's also the angle of the police who say they suspect him to be an armed robber. We are told by the residents that he actually mentioned that he had witnessed a robbery in which a police officer was involved, and that must have been the reason he was picked up with an unregistered vehicle and, 3 weeks later was confirmed dead. What is your general impression of this entire case? I mean, aside from what happened yesterday.
As I was saying already, if we don't believe in our institutions and we don't believe in ourselves, all these things will happen. The police will have their side of the story, but a proper inquiry will bring about this. Because what I read was this guy was picked up, brought to the cells, was sick, wasn't attended to, was going to take a shower, and he fell and died. If you go through all this, I mean, good forensics.
I mean, that's interesting because we've not heard what we've.
This account is new.
We've
not heard
new.
this one.
We've not heard it at all.
I read it in the papers yesterday.
Okay, I mean, fair enough, because there are different accounts to the story, and so
yes,
it adds to my question.
That's what I was coming to. That is the story. But then the police have come out with their own story. It's just like this bullion van thing, right?
Yeah.
So as I was saying, no matter what a criminal incident like this has happened, if we take our time, we will be able to unravel the mystery surrounding whatever account we have. But if we don't have the patience and we take the law into our own hands by thinking that when we go burn the police station, then we'll get the result. That's what I don't think I will subscribe to, right? The account I gave you was somebody's account which was published. With that, an inquiry can lead to something. And the police inquiry also, if they say it's a shootout, forensic expert can know from the angle where the bullet was shot or that sort of thing to come to the conclusion that yes, it was a shootout or whatever it is. So what I'm saying is that we have a long way to go where our institutions are concerned. And we have a long way to go how we ourselves understand the institutions. The police are useless without you and me. We are mutually linked. If I don't give the police any information, they are useless. And if he in the uniform cannot use my information to work according to the remit of giving them by the Constitution, then there's no need for a police force. And that is what we should understand. I don't think we have gotten there yet. Dr. Dampare and his people must work towards that, towards the point that where we have to respect the police, where the police will have to work only according to the remit given them by the Constitution. A lot of the policemen, just because they are in uniform, the men in black, as soon as the uniform gives them a certain power, which is wrong. The power is from the Constitution. I don't think that has sunk very well with the police. And I think there are a lot of miscreants also in the police service. A lot of people who shouldn't be there are there. And that thing must be looked at very seriously. Because if you know your work and if you have been trained properly, crowd control, you don't just have to aim and kill. And from Ijra, you also saw what we were
Doc, so very quickly on this bit, the different accounts coming through, there's a saying that there's no smoke without fire, and the different accounts create quite an interesting, curious picture. But I just want your take quickly on this. The Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative has also, in a statement released only yesterday, they are saying that this reiterates, underlines their calls for an IPPC, an independent organization or institution that will delve into such activities, not the Police Professional Standards Bureau. Because sometimes it is the police, in fact, what we've known is it is the police investigating itself, the police investigating activities of the police, or at best would have what you were on, a committee set up by a minister or a commission put up by the president to get into the matters. The CHRI is saying they are calling on the Executive Parliament, the Ministry of the Interior, to urgently establish an independent police complaints commission. What is your take?
Strictly speaking, if you ask me, I would love to have something like the committee which I sat on to look into this. That does not preclude the police doing their own inquiry, because it is for their own research and for their own good also. So they can do their own, which can feed into whatever other committee may be set up. I would have gone for a committee like we had in Ijra, and that their report would help assuage most of these things that are always becoming perennial somehow or pervasive. So yes, I would endorse that. But I'm endorsing it not because some organization outside our shores. And we should not be always interested in people telling us what to do. Elsewhere, the institutionalized system itself would know what to do. Like, I don't want to mention a country, but I strongly suspect that everywhere the police are a little hated. But then the institutional arrangement is also there to establish the facts. Within the police, there should be a way of establishing real facts and getting the bad nuts from the police out. But yes, I endorse the call for a ministerial inquiry or a committee inquiry, kind of.
All right, Doc, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate that you could join the program, Dr. Vladimir Nkoranza. He's an international relations expert. We've still got Professor Ening and Mr. Bombande on the line to finish our discussion on national security issues. We had to take Doc's thoughts on Nkoranza, because he had to leave us. So
interesting how the fusion there. But we'll be going over to Nkoranza shortly, or Heming Tewia is standing by. Not just yet, though. Professor Ening and Emmanuel Bombande, I just want your quick takes on this before we get into the Nkoranza conversation. Finally, to wrap from my end, our economic situation. How much does that expose us to the terrorist threat? And again, consider, just today we were hearing from the head of the IOM, the International Organization for Migration, saying that 476,000 migrants are in Ghana. On the back of border openings, we've reopened. Togo has reopened with us as well. Looking at these two, what dangers do they pose for us in terms of the terrorist threat? So economic instability, the reopening of our borders, migrants in our country. Very quickly, before we transition to Nkoranza. I'll start with you, Professor Ening. Do we have Professor Ening with us? Do we have Emmanuel Bombande?
No, yes, I don't think there's a direct correlation between migrants and insecurity. That's number one. Number two, when people feel excluded from a supposedly booming economy, that creates a basis for frustration, for anger, and for a desire to strike a blow against the state, creating a fertile ground for possible recruitment. Or in cases where there's what in political science we call growth without development. So the economic indices on paper look very nice, but ordinary people are not beginning to feel it. And I think a combination of that sense of victimhood, of exclusion, and of dispossession creates a really very fertile ground for it.
Okay, Mr. Bombande, your reaction to that same question?
I would amplify on that. I will then go further to suggest that one, sustainable livelihoods, people's basic conditions of living must be constantly under the purview of how we are also responding to terrorism. If people's basic needs continue to be unmet, then it poses a problem. But on to that, you must add that if people's basic needs are not met, but they feel that there is the national effort to respond to those unmet needs, it assuages what I would call the frustration. Normally, I wouldn't want to comment on what happens elsewhere, but I'm compelled to draw an example. Our big brother Nigeria, as we normally refer to, the ruling party alone, in terms of their presidential candidates who are filing nominations for presidential elections, amongst them, they have so far spent about 27 billion naira. And if you convert it, you are talking about over $50 million just to contest to be president. I'm compelled to draw on this example and to say that when in a country, access to power can take so much of the resources from people who are not even sure they will be elected. And at the same time in that environment, people do not have 1 square meal a day to eat. You have a problem. And let us not run away from these realities, that there is a widening gap in the sub-region between the elite, wealthy, rich politicians and those in the communities in border areas who have nothing to eat during the day. We cannot sustain that. And the lesson for us in Ghana is that we cannot have unbridled display of wealth. The most expensive cars that are manufactured anywhere in the world are on our streets. And we expect to coexist in that ambivalence with people who cannot have a decent meal a day. There is bound to be anger, frustration. So livelihoods, and that's what Professor Enin said, we cannot make the disconnection. But I'm basically saying, let's be aware of that in our conscience. And in solidarity, how are we taking care of those who are excluded and marginalized socially and economically?
Mr. Bomane and Professor Enin, please, I'll just ask you to hold on another time while we cross over to Nkoranza. My colleague Ohiming Teria is engaging the family of Albert Donko, the man at the center of all the chaos and violence we're seeing happening or unfolding in that part of the country. Hello, Ohiming. Tell us what the family is saying about the recent developments. Okay, so what you're seeing are live visuals from Nkoranza. You can see the family gathered. They're clearly distraught and still in a state of shock. You can see people still crying over the death of Albert. But Ohiming will join us shortly with the live updates. But let me come to you, Prof. We've seen this time without number, whether there are allegations or situations where police have found to have misconducted themselves. And usually, what you may just hear of is a demotion. Do you think that if we had seen something like what happened in the George Floyd case, where the police officer was found guilty and charged, probably we'll begin to see a difference with regards to how our police handle some of these matters?
I think that's correct. But probably it's much worse than that. I don't think it's just a matter of misconduct. If we take the last 18 months between the last 18 to 24 months, we've seen an escalation in the trigger happiness of police officers to shoot people, to cause bodily harm. And it raises fundamental concerns as to why this explosive increase in the use of lethal force. My argument is that this is an internal issue relating to forms of resistance to Dr. Dampare and his team's attempt to cleanse the police of the bad nuts. So this is a struggle between the forces of evil and those of good, seeking to bring about change in how law enforcement is performed in this country. So, yes, I support the call by the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative. We need to find a better way of investigating police brutalities, punishing the individuals or the groups involved to serve as a deterrent to those who may seek to behave in a similar way. But we are facing a crisis in policing, not because Dr. Dampare and his team don't want to bring about the change, but the manner in which people have been recruited into the service over the past 2 to 3 decades has infiltrated the service with people who do not share the institutional ethos of the service, to a point where we are reaching the very tip of whether these non-performing individuals or groups whose understanding of law enforcement, of professionalism, and of service to the state of Ghana, and by extension, its citizenry, is different from the institutional ethos. And that is what we are seeing. If the different strands of information that we are getting is anything to go by, and I'm very happy that the documentary also was clear. No lessons have been learned from Nigeria. We need to learn those lessons precisely because if you take the sheer numbers of the population, you take the proportion of that population as those who are in the police service, we are going to see tensions continue to mount in the manner in which law enforcement is performed. Now, the manner in which it's performed, if it's not consensual, dialogic, that seeks to build bridges and create understanding, then we will see the economic frustrations that Emmanuel and I have spoken about earlier bubbling to the fore, and people think striking a blow against the legitimate representatives of the state then is legitimate. But my cautionary note here is that when you strike a blow against the state and its representatives, the force that comes towards you is disproportionate. So people should not attack police stations, police officers, military convoys, police vehicles, because that just worsens the case. Okay? What it means, therefore, is that we need more effective, accessible conflict resolution mechanisms that are quick, that listens to citizens' complaints, can respond to them, and as much as possible, solve them. But Edria, and I think Emmanuel and I were very clear when the Edria case happened, that it is only symptomatic of a wider societal frustration that will express itself in violence. Nkoranza has happened. I think other towns have experienced similar cases.
Akachi, for example, in recent times, Akachi. Prof, I was mentioning that we had Akachi, for example, in recent times, where there was a similar development.
So it's going to get much worse. So we need the police service to begin to engage in finding effective means of resolving these tensions, and also bringing on board or partnering other civil society institutions. But let me express my deep disappointment with the performance of the Parliamentary Committee on Defense and Inter. They have the supervisory and oversight responsibilities over the performance of the police. And they are deathly quiet, particularly when the ranking member was a former police officer herself. So the committee must be up and doing, but certainly from their performance and their behavior, it leaves a lot to be desired. I unfortunately have to run to class.
Sure, Prof.
So let me thank you very much for this morning. I know you are in the competent hands of my friend.
Yes, we really appreciate your company this morning, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. That's Professor Inin, who's been sharing his thoughts on threats of terrorism in the country, and just wrapping up on that Nkoranza issue. Mr. Bomande, I will come to take your comments on Nkoranza. We have to go back, though. My colleague Ohiming Teria is ready for us. Apologies, earlier I said that we were at the home of Albert Donko. Instead, he's at the home of one of the gentlemen, or the gentleman who lost his life yesterday as a result of the protest. Hello, Ohiming. Tell us what's happening where you are.
Thank you, Benis. We are currently in the Nkoranza suburb of Adumkrum, in one of the homes of one of the 10 victims that we are learning was shot yesterday by the police in the clash between the youth and the police yesterday. This house, the reactions here is full of pain and anger as residents join the mother of the deceased and the family to mourn a departed young man identified as 19-year-old final year student of the Nkoranza Technical Institute who was caught in yesterday's clash between the police and the youth of Nkoranza. I have been speaking to some residents who have been venting their spleen on the police for killing what they describe as an innocent man. So let me speak to the mother of the gentleman, Madam Yakwa, who has been in pain as she continued to be in pain, and residents continue to calm him down in this regard. Mami, I'm watching. What you saying?
Yeah.
Bominchemu kakra. Obano ye didn't say no one why cry.
About Chomba Victor Wusu. Oya Bema. Oko school MTI. Takraka. Round up. Sorry, Sammy Koja. Brother Chana market day. Timmy Konopa. Never mammy Baiska. Kwajo. Janako school. Osemame. Meko. Tima me fracture. Eko. Jam. Mojamua. Lamete say. Me ban. I was for the tour. I was for the tour. Oh, go be better.
So, Bernice, this is Madam Yakwa, and she's giving me background to what led to her son being shot in that process. The unfortunate story is that this is the only son or child she has, and she tells me yesterday in the morning, whilst leaving for the market, she actually gave money to the gentleman to go to school. So she didn't hear anything from her child until in the afternoon when she received call from the market that her son has been shot. So she's very, she's in pain. Mami misa. Say you can't Victor Wusuya. Man on cry or to say.
Bago baby down. A big down. Crow.
Enti mpacho wadaroma ma tobo ase na aha. Enti no a wote say etu aka no de na we.
Bobu. About something. My Tibanko. Minua Nedimachi. And you go. Okwa pass okwa. Amaro bayo. Baba the tour. Very good tea. Dear Bonnet.
A brave chat or come back crying on our nobody dear and sacra and come back crying chat to our any dear.
The catcher say, well, you're me quarter. And she goes school. Goes Cosma. You got the Tia, say, maybe I have
So the only opportunity she had was yesterday when she told the son to go to school after giving him money, and then she left for the market. It was later in the day that she received the painful news, and she couldn't withstand it. So it took the brother to go to the hospital to confirm the story that indeed the 19-year-old Victor Owusu has been shot in the head. And she believes that the only child of her has been killed without any cause. And she tells me, Mommy, what's it I can say?
3 months
So according to the mother, the child or the late Victor Owusu would have written the WASI in the next 3 months, so he completes his course at the Nkoranza Technical Institute, but now he is no more. Let me find out from her again. I will say me who say facha me say me wo arehuo mu na nso ye de ne say ye kasa kakra say asem wa ba die pa na wo hwehwe say besie e wo Victor ni we ho
asem tren na me pe apart for di ma wo o ma di ma wo
na o tie no na oba no waka wo ma omo ye kire no ho ana se na won ka ho
Dabio na me mo jamu Dabio
So for Madam Yakwa, she's calling for justice for the late Victor Owusu, and she believes that the police who came in yesterday are at fault and they should be blamed for the death of her child. And for her, she couldn't tell as to whether the late Victor Owusu was part of the youth of Nkoranza who took the streets and then clashed with police yesterday. And I will the chat to okra na me bisa we. If you say asem ni see no Mako police station, asem be okra no maka hire mo.
E ba jo police for okra mu no.
So I was asking her whether she's been to the police to make some enquiries, and she tells me even the police themselves are not around. They fled the police station just to take cover elsewhere because of what happened yesterday. So that has been the reaction from the home of Victor Owusu, 19-year-old final year student of Nkoranza Technical Institute, who was caught in that particular clash between police and angry youth of Nkoranza, who went rampage yesterday, and he's among the 10 casualties that we are picking were involved and affected by yesterday's clash.
Ohiming, just a quick one on what the woman said. You tried to find out from her if her son was part of the protesters, just to get a bit of clarity there. Did she say no, he had gone to school, or that she couldn't tell if he was part of the protesters or not?
Yeah, let me find out from her so we can understand the situation very clear. Mama, Mr. Victor, and now go school no, and I say what is say okoye, and I say wanko. Nti ebrebe na ode ne ho obehia saa kwanhia we. Nti na de wo kan de ebra asem si e na o hye ne suku atade ana. Okay. Okay, so she tells me the incidents happened after the gentleman had closed from school, and she's been, enrolled in electrical apprenticeship. So after the school, he was on his way to the shop when the incident occurred. So she's grieving over the death of her son, her only child, Victor Owusu, 19-year-old final year student of Nkoranza Technical Institute.
Ohiming, when we spoke yesterday, you mentioned that the youth had put their protest on hold because they had picked up some information that some miscreants wanted to use the opportunity to create mayhem. Why the U-turn after that meeting they had with the chiefs of the town?
It's difficult to answer this question because I was actually part of a meeting between the traditional authorities and the youth leaders who the Omahine Nana Kwame Bafo IV addressed them and asked that they hold on with whatever action that they want to embark upon. For instance, he advised them to exercise restraint and promise the support of the traditional council in ensuring speedy investigations into the death of Albert Akwesi Donko. So, few minutes after the meeting with the traditional authorities, I engaged the leadership of the youth who said, yes, they've agreed And then because he's the overlord of the area, they wouldn't want to do anything to restrict his wares.
Well, it appears we have a bit of a challenge with the feed. We'll try to reconnect. But very sad development there. 90-year-old Victor Owusu shot in the head.
Yeah, according
and if he was in school uniform and all of this, it's a bit passerby returning from school. We do not know technically whether he took part in the protest or whatever, but this leaves a lot to be desired.
Look, Benjamin, I mean, I'm really disheartened because there are just so many scenes of Idra that keep coming back. I remember in the Idra instance, one gentleman who was shot and his mother shared a similar story. She had gone to the market, he was a student. Thankfully, he didn't die. Unfortunately, this young boy has lost his life.
I mean, third year in his final term, you know,
with 3 months
schooling,
to write the wasi.
3 months to sit. You can't even begin to imagine the pain of this woman.
Exactly.
19 years. She's taking care of this child as a parent for 19 years, hoping something would emanate from his life, and his life just snuffed out like that.
So we've still got Mr. Emmanuel Bomane on the line. I mean, I don't know how you feel about what we've just heard from the mother of this victim. And as your co-panelists said before they left us, it appears the scenes from Idra are just playing back. Youth go to protest the killing or the death of one person, and then you have more of them either getting critically injured or dying in the process.
Yes. First of all, I join you in the studio in expressing how disconcerting and how disheartening this is. But I also join you in appreciating your media practice that allows Victor Owusu's mother to grieve, but not to just grieve alone in her small community, but for Ghanaians to see in their homes and offices that there is a certain burden that falls not just on the victims, but on all of us collectively as victims when things of this nature go wrong as they have gone wrong. But let me basically say that if you follow the conversations up to now, before my two colleagues left, with all the brilliant and excellent submissions they made, what comes to us constantly is the type of quality we put in the Ghana Police Service is the output also in terms of the quality that we will have. So very quickly, I would start with training and retraining. How are we training personnel of the Ghana Police Service so that inherently and intuitively they are aware that every action that they undertake, they must be aware that they can equally be held accountable for those actions, even if those actions are in policing and in providing service in the nature of the protection of civilians. And that is the complexity of policing in a young democracy or a democracy as ours. You cannot say that because I'm a police personnel, I can be trigger happy with how I deploy the weapon that has been given to me simply because I'm doing my work or I'm performing my duties as a police. You must be aware that you can be held accountable if in so executing your duties, you do not do it properly. But that comes back to the training and the retraining. I know for a fact that yes, we need more police personnel, but if you look at some of our training facilities, some of our training facilities were to take about 600 recruits, but they end up having about 1,200 in the same premises. They are overcrowded, they are not eating well, and the training in itself is not delivering the type of quality in terms of input. But we want them to pass out and be very good in delivering service. So this is one aspect of it. But Beyond that, the second aspect is the interconnection between the role of the police and the judicial service. Because when the police makes the effort to stop impunity, for example, they arrest somebody who is selling weapons illegally. And I think there was an incident like that in Bolga last week, Bolga Tanga, capital of the Upper East. What the public expect is when they hear that such a person would be prosecuted, they want updates on what happened. But at that point, the case gets lost, in which later on, it is as if to say that it's the judicial arm of government that did not do its work. And so the police then are left on the ledge and hanging. So there is also how we improve the performance of the judicial service in supporting the police to do their work. And my third comment on this comes back to the professionalization of the police. But when we talk about the professionalization of the police, I totally agree with my former panelists that there must be also the constant civic education of citizens and the populace, that it doesn't matter how difficult the situation may be. Do not go after the police to hurt them or to destroy public property. Because the police, when they wear the uniform, they represent all of us as citizens of the state of Ghana. When you attack them, you're not attacking individuals, you're attacking the state. And often their response, as Professor Enin said, becomes disproportionate. So we need to educate particularly the youth that the answer is not in attacking the police. But having made this observation, I also accept that these processes of change do not happen overnight. And I will not mince words. I am one of the people of so many Ghanaians who are very happy with the type of leadership IGP Dampare is bringing to the police, going out on community outreach, engaging them, being social, and helping people to connect with the police as friends and not as their enemies, and trying to bring that civil police or military relationship is important, but it will need time for it to sustain itself. And I hope that we can see better training for better service. And finally, if I were to make a last comment also on this, it might be necessary, following from the observations that we did not learn from Ejura, and these incidences are repeating, to audit the recruitment of personnel into the service, and to have what I would call a quality control of how people have been recruited and whether at the end of their training and passing out, they really are fit for purpose truly as police officers. So that we do not see a situation in which if a recruitment went wrong, the person simply goes through the emotions of training, but that person was never prepared to be a police officer. So maybe the IGP might consider, and I think there are examples already of trying to get rid of the bad knots or the bad police, like the bullion van incident in which some police have been implicated. They are taking them out one after the other. But can they do an audit to be able to ensure that they bring value into the Ghana Police Service in terms of personnel?
Amande, thank you so much for spending your time with us this morning and sharing your thoughts with us. So, Benjamin,
I think we also ought to remind viewers that we had Professor Kwesi Ening joining the conversation, Dr. Vladimir Nchidanso as well, international relations expert, and now Emmanuel Bombande. But, you know, something I would have, unfortunately, technology has not aided us, something I would have wanted to find out from Ohiming Teria, our man on the beat. You know, the youth started, one of the youth leaders mentioned that it must end with
Albert
Akwesi Donko, that no other life must be lost. And they reacted the way they did yesterday. I would have wanted him to gauge the temperature for us. Now that another life has been lost, a 19-year-old, 28-year-old gone, a 19-year-old losing his life as well under these circumstances, how the people in the community are reacting. It would be interesting to know.
Yes, so our team is working really hard to get Ohim Interior back on the line. Hopefully technology will be our friend this morning. But Benjamin, I must also add that, you know, the facts around the gentleman's death, we've only heard from the mother's side, as was told her by those who were there.
You mean the 19-year-old?
The 19-year-old, yes, right. Victor Owusu's death. I'm saying this because you know what transpired during the Idra committee.
Oh, yeah.
We were told that it was possible that the gun that was used on the victims, those who were protesting, could have been fired from within the crowd. We wait to see what the story will be this time round with regards to this 19-year-old.
People we didn't see armed with any munitions, but with cudgels.
I just had to put that in there, that this is the account we are getting from the mother, as was told by those who were there, who witnessed.
I would just add that for me, I am in total agreement with what the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative is saying. We've got to the point where the police can't continue investigating itself. You can't be a judge in your own case. I think the legal people will say nemo judex in causa sua. Let's have an IPPC, an independent entity. Look, I have a case pending, and I say this without any bias, at the Police Professional Standards Bureau. I get the feeling, and I'm not being impartial here, if it were an ordinary citizen, maybe some of these things would have. Sometimes these things, and it's, oh, you've lodged a complaint, it's against it, all kinds of convoluted. Take it away from the police and let an independent entity deal with the issue.
Yeah, Benjamin,
we're sick and tired of these things.
And let me just say that I had an experience working with a young man who was coming from the Volta region to Accra. And he was stopped, the vehicle he was traveling in, a public vehicle, was stopped, and he was handpicked because he had dreadlocks on. And he was told, bring your bag, let's search your bag. They searched the bag, and they say they found weed. He said, okay, show it to me.
I like the way they say, they say they found weed.
Yeah, because...
You remember the incident with, what's his name? I'll let you go on, but the City FM, Sanda, our colleague.
Yeah.
And how he insisted on filming and ensuring that, because sometimes we all know what happens.
I mean, the former IGP spoke about that, so it's no secret that some of them plant.
They plant stuff on you.
On people. So this, I mean, just making the story brief. This young man says, he said, show it to me. They said, we'll not show it to you. Bundled him up in their car, kept him till about 5 p.m. He had to come to school. The part of the story that broke me was that they took his phone and called his mother. He said he pleaded with them. My mom is not well. Don't call her. You know what you're doing is not right. They called this woman. According to him, she suffered a stroke. She had a shock, suffered a stroke, and went to the hospital. Now, the police...
On the back of hearing that.
Yes, on the back of hearing that your son has been arrested for having weed on him. Now, the policeman said, give us money. He said, I don't have money. All I have, you know, I think he said was his school fees, which was on his mobile money. You won't believe what happened. They took his phone, you know, initiated the transaction, asked him for his PIN, and they transferred the money to themselves. Now, you know, they have these Velcro name tags.
Right.
So they had all taken them off. So he couldn't identify the people. But here's where technology helped. He went to MTN for a statement.
Right.
And then he just saw the transfer was made to a certain inspector. Right. He took it to PIPS. Nothing happened.
Right.
Nothing happened. I did that story. He came here to Joy FM, and then I spoke to a couple of senior colleagues, and they said, you know what, go to Commander One. You know who Commander One is?
Oh.
COP Boache.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Kofi
Boache. So I went to Kofi Boache's office, and he called the gentleman, and he was in... I wasn't allowed to sit in the meeting, but I could hear what was transpiring, and he was so upset. Within 30 minutes, he had put them at the Nima police station. The young man was given his phone and his money, and there was going to be an inquiry on that case. So like you're saying, we've seen it happen time without number. This PIPS issue, that nothing really happens about. But we'll be back to take your comments and your thoughts on this particular story and the national security issue. How are you staying vigilant amidst the threats? We'll take a quick breather here. When we also come back, we'll be talking about the Achimota forest. Is it for sale or not? Well, the minister says all you're hearing is not true. We'll be back.
Following the publication of the Forest Cessation of Forest Reserve Instrument 2022, EI 144, there have been reports circulating in sections of the public that the Achimota Forest Reserve, as currently constituted, has been sold and is set to be earmarked and redeveloped into residential enclave. The general public is entreated to disregard these reports as they are false, baseless, and non-factual. Indeed, what the propagators of these messages have refused to add is that EI 144 was published together with the Forest Achimota Firewood Plantation Forest Reserve Amendment Instrument 2022, EI 154, which I'll be making available to you, members of the press. So, for the avoidance of doubt, President Akufo-Addo, nor myself or his government intends to sell the Achimota Forest or redevelop the Achimota Forest as currently constituted. On the contrary, we intend to enrich the Achimota Forest, revamp it, and hopefully, in the not too distant future, transform it into the likes of Hyde Park of London and Central Park of New York, where Ghanaians can go and enjoy forest, the beauty of nature and forest reserve as it happens in other parts of the world.
So you had that Samuel Abujinapo. He is Lands Minister, responding to claims that the Achimota Forest has been sold. So my colleague Samuel Kojo-Bray stepped out today, and here's what he got from some of you.
So welcome again to another edition of the Citizen Microphone on the AM show on JoyNews. Now today we are at the Achimota Forest because of the issues surrounding it. Now there were allegations that government wants to sell off the forest. The government came out yesterday to say, well, I am not selling the forest. What I am doing is to implement a decision that was taken in 2013 to reverse peripherals of the forest to the original landowners, the Owo family. We are here on the street, close to the forest itself, to find out from you what you make of happenings. Well, as you can see, a lot of drivers or a lot of people are in traffic this morning. We'll be finding out from some of them what they make of the recent development concerning the Achimota Forest Reserve, plus other people who are possibly not in traffic but are willing to share their thought on the Citizen Microphone. Now, you can also share your comment with us on our social media platform, and we will in turn share it with the rest of the world. Welcome again. Let's try and see if we can get some people to chat with. Well, gentlemen, I'm sure you heard of the issue about the forest yesterday. Government says I'm not selling. What do you make of it?
I think selling it would be a bad idea. It's not a good thing to sell the land, because when it rains, it's the forest that protects us. The trees and the, how do you call it, the trees and stuff. They protect us. So if you have to sell the land, that will not make any good use to us. Yeah. So I don't think he selling it will be a good idea. No, he shouldn't.
All right, then.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Chief, can we come to you for a thought or two? What do you also make of the happening?
Okay, we are planting trees, right? So why do we sell the existing ones when we want to plant more? We should rather protect what we have and then build upon what we have, not rather destroying what had already been preserved. These have been preserved for ages. So why is it that today there's a need to destroy what we have protected for ages? It's not right to sell it.
Well, government says I'm not selling. I'm only giving the peripherals where already development have started to the family for some other development. What do you make of it?
Is it needful? Is it needful? It's not needful to even give out a portion of it. We are supposed to rather protect it, not to give part of it. We know it has been depleted to a way. We are supposed to rather protect what is left, not to give it out. So it's a bad idea. Even giving out the peripherals is a bad idea.
So he thinks that even if it's the peripherals, it's still a bad idea. We are still on the streets, taking your thoughts, especially in relation to the hula baloo about the Achimota forest. Well, pardon us for the sound. We are on the street today on a busy highway trying to get your thought about the Achimota forest. Question is, what do you make of what is happening? As allegations are that government wants to sell the forest. Government says, I am not. I am only giving the peripherals of the forest for to the original family for development. What do you make of this? Share your thought with us, and we will share it with the rest of our viewers. This is a Citizen Microphone on the AM show. Government says it doesn't intend to sell the forest. What do you make of the development?
It doesn't intend, or he intend to sell it.
The government says they are not going to sell it.
That's okay. That's good. That's good news. But selling it is not good, because the forest is here since long time, and I think it is a good place for us, as you are seeing the environment. Even some visitors has to come here to come and take some enjoyment for themselves. So I don't think it's good for selling it or to sell it.
Okay. What do you think must happen to the forest itself?
Well, that one I can't say. I can't tell. Okay. Yeah, I can't tell.
Thank you very much. So that's it. You are here on your Citizen Microphone. Let's see if we can get other people share their thought with us on this segment of the AM show. Well, let's see if we can still get some people to try and share their thought with us on this segment. Okay. So we are still on the street around Achimota Forest, still talking to Ghanaians about what they make of what's happening. Chief, thank you very much. I hope you're well.
I'm fine, thank you, sir.
What's your thought on the matters arising concerning the Achimota Forest?
Well, of late, I haven't really had time. I just heard about it this morning on news. My father was, listening to about it being on sale, or they are going to sell it, something like that. But aside that, it's like a vague idea altogether.
Well, government says, well, I'm not selling. I'm only giving the peripherals, which have already seen some development to the family, so that they can develop it for other things, not a forest. But the forest itself still remains a forest. So we're asking, what do you make of that? People say, well, government should not even give any portion of it to anybody. We don't know what you think.
Well, a forest is a forest, There shouldn't be anything like I'm giving some part of it to individuals for them to use it to do something, okay? Because forest is reserve, understand? But then already you can see some activities already going on along the forest. So the government thinks there's nothing wrong giving those portions to individuals to use for their daily activities. So that's how the whole thing is set up.
And what do you make of that? Like, government thinks, so there's the development is already taking place, so no need, let's move on. What do you think of that?
Well, it's not the best idea right now, I think so, because if some part is already given to some people, I don't think it will take that long for everything to be given to individuals with time. So they should put that idea aside of giving it to some people for them to use it and everything, blah, blah, blah. They should reserve the forest as it is. That's the best idea. Because looking at the ecosystem right now, a lot of places are losing their forests due to this.
So Ma, yes, we are still talking about the Achimota forest.
I just want to tell my
okay, that's fine.
Very well. I said, I'm a person I can say, my name near president, or person or yet. But Achimota forest, Ebwa bebre. Ebwa bebre. What kind the book of 1 Chronicles 7:14 now? Or see, if my people that shall call by my name will humble themselves and seek my face and pray, I, the Lord, I will heal their land. Ghana pempem so ayabedu sese age nyame. Omo di omo adwen akonhu bia nya yie. Bebia ye mpai bo bia nso a nyame de yakọ ho a yekọkọ mpaye no. Omo nim na omo dim omo nsanka. Oman Ghana nyame ni ye mpanyifo ne bedi ne yawo mo. Because Achimota forest na wo ho no. Me also for ba me so me ko bo mpaye wo ho. Me ne me kurofo ko. Me join sometimes ago but me who said do baby na sese me dane mani. Ghana nya nipa ba ako dia. Enye MPP dia enye NDC dia. Enti so mu ya de omu kai hu se edru anajo omu de omu titu pilo so da. Na omu da omu nkwa kodin. Ene na se so omu hu se yare ahoro na ebe wiase no. Ya so odin ne ya boni bebrebe ene atwe sa de ne ba. Se nipa ya de nipa na eka. Se nipa kana se wonti a ekire wode nomie na ko ufie enya somdwe da.
But I better explain say oh we forest in the main family sanka ye be develop kura ma na ko nanim eye ne ye da ho no na family so mo pe ne ye de ma omo enye forest na nkasa
ene de enya me masem ono de ne nyankopon asem ono no onim ne oye because Ghana ne ya bedu pempem so a ye mpanyifo afa ne say ye kasa omo ntie biom ne omo ne book chiro omo no omo ye ba ene na me sa me repeat say omo kai hu so omo de omo titu ho a omoda na ena form we hin no honhom ne ko ene ne yanyina sese ye hu wo wiase se wiase akwane ba ye di ko dakro ye beja ho akwanta ba na odi ba bebu because time anyankopɔ di ndebukati na zesi so no obo edu ba bi na odi otimodin ekɔ nyame maso nyame ne ne di ye ne ye nim se ya president de o ye nyame suro ni but o ye so di ni nsa ka Achimota forest na wa pam ye fi ho no mu a nyame ne ni oh my Ghana bedi. Maybe.
So what she is basically saying is that she is a prophetess and a prayer warrior who prays a prayer group, and therefore, if government wants to sell off the place to deny them a place of prayer, God Himself would deal with the president. Now, when I asked her about the fact that the governor has explained that they are not selling, that they are only giving the peripheral of the forest to the family, she said, well, that is between the president and his God, and that he knows what he's doing. But if it ends up being something that would destroy the forest, God will also not forgive the president. We're still on the street picking your thought on the citizen.
And we'll be taking more thoughts and comments from you later when we open the phone lines and when we get onto our Facebook page. You're watching the AM show with Bernice, and Benjamin will be coming later to have a discussion with implementers. It's a project management non-profit organization that partners with charitable organizations and philanthropists as well as corporate institutions to positively impact communities. Do stay. We'll be back shortly.
Welcome back, and we're going to be having an interaction with implementers. But don't you worry, right after that, we're going to be engaging you on the topical matters today. So implementers, it's a project management non-profit that partners with charitable organizations, philanthropists, and corporate institutions to positively impact our communities. Well, joining me in the studio this morning, Jemima Akosia Okaiko is Assistant Communications and Impact Manager. And we also have Lauren Esiama-Yabua, Assistant Projects Manager, Implementers. I want to find out what this bit about implementers is. Jemima and Lauren, thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, so I'll start with you. Where do I start, Jemima or Lauren? Lauren? Okay. What is the story about implementers? What is implementers? How did all of this start?
Yeah, so I think you briefly talked about it, but implementers is, just like you said, a project management non-profit. And we work with corporate institutions, philanthropists, charitable institutions like foundations, NGOs, to positively impact society. And so the implementers just started out as a need because we realized that in the social development space, there was a lack of project management, implementation in there. And so that was how this organization was started, founded in 2013, but we had active operations from 2015. And we've been in the system from then till now. We've been doing a lot of work in the social development space to make sure that project management is the key in implementing all of the projects.
It's so fitting. Yeah. Implementers, project management, implementing, whatever is meant to be achieved as a goal. But Jemima, so what would you say then is what you stand for? What is your vision? Okay. What as implementers do you look forward to?
Yeah. So our vision is to be the preferred African development project management organization, bringing value to social projects. So at the heart of everything, it's impact, bringing impacts into the lives of the people that we come into contact with, the people being better, highly evolving, and then becoming better. So, in social projects, the person becomes better, lives, it's impacted irrespective of the economic background or wherever they find themselves. So we want to be that organization that takes responsibility of the improvement and development of individuals in the world. Yeah.
And in terms of these bits about impact, there's a lot you've been doing. I can see right behind me, I'm not sure, this looks like a robotic piece with, is that a sanitizer?
Yes, sanitizer dispenser.
Tell us about some of these activities you've been engaging in.
So one of our clients that we work with is the Help in Africa Foundation. They are the funders of the Nkoranza Model Labs program.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting the connection.
So we work for the Help in Africa Foundation to bring to life the idea of impacting the younger generation in the field of ICT. Okay. So the vision of the Nkoranza Model Lab is to ensure that there are ICT centers all over Ghana in all the 16 regions. And we as project managers of this project ensures that these labs come into existence. So in terms of the process of thinking through about the implementation and then also bringing it to life. And then after that, the unique thing about us is that we don't leave your project hanging, or we don't just, after the education, we don't just move away from it. We ensure that there is impact. So that was a sanitizer dispenser that was created using EV3 Lego, that is a robotic equipment. Yeah, by students who are between the ages of 10, 12, 15, yes, in junior high schools. So they created this and they just ended annual impact roundtable discussion that we created for our client. Yeah, so this is a...
So this is basically a product of your handiwork.
Yes, yes.
And
yes.
this is some of the impact you're making out there. But even as we talk about these activities you're engaging in, we also know that you are impacting society. You're focusing on social activities, non-profit activities. Project management affects every sphere of our lives.
Yeah. Exactly.
What we are doing today is a project. This show is a project, planning and everything.
Yeah.
But why focus on these core, bits, social activities, non-profit? Why?
Yes, so our impact in social development projects started out because we were doing a lot of social development work. And then just like I mentioned, we realized that there's a gap between managing such projects with a structured approach. And so we realized that, in order to impact these lives of people all over the country, in rural areas, in deprived communities, we want to make sure that whatever we are doing, at the end of it all, the greater result will be the maximum impact that we realize. And so that is what drives us to try to work in the social development space. But that is not the only thing that we do.
Because I was going to ask you, so beyond these non-profit activities, what else do you do?
Yes, so we have two main services that we offer. We have a development partnership bit that focuses on foundations and all of the social development work. And we also have a corporate philanthropy service bit. This is where we partner with corporate institutions to carry out their corporate social responsibility in all of these areas that we've probably been working in. And
so you partner them and ensure that they can actually roll out their CSR.
Exactly. So we do those CSR projects for them. And what happens is most of the time people think CSR is just, you know, I see a community, they are deprived, I just give them some books, some laptops, some computers, and that's it. But in order to actually realize the impact of what CSR does for a business, you have to take a structured project management approach towards it. And that is what we do, and that is where we come in to make sure that that structured approach is taken. And now the framework that everybody is following to make sure that we have a sustainable future for all is the Sustainable Development Goals.
Right.
And these are the things that we focus on when we implement our projects in education, in health, mental health, economic empowerment, and all of these areas. We help these corporate institutions to develop a path in how they want to implement their projects in these areas. And what happens is, at the end of it all, the maximum result should be an impact. So it shouldn't be a short-term, you know, I give you this and it solves your need in that time and that's it. Long-term impact.
It must, you know, reach beyond.
Exactly, long-term impact. And we realize that, you know, consumers of such these businesses are able to associate themselves with them because of that. If I realize that you are carrying out a long-term impact project, why wouldn't I be happy to associate myself with you?
Right.
I would be.
Right.
And so in order to do that, that is where we come in to help you do that. And we've actually worked with Mrs. Tracy Owusu-Addo, Tracy Success, on her foundation, which is the BRAVE project. And we partnered with her to provide robotics training for some young girls that she selected. And at the end of that project, we realized that the impact of the students, she could attest to that, that the students were able to, you know, realize just within a 5-day training, they were able to, you know, pick up so many great stuff from that training. And these are more things that we're also doing with the other corporate institutions. So.
If I would add up to
briefly,
that, yes. We also partner with philanthropists. So individual, you want to do a social project, you can call on us. We'll help you, you know, turn your idea into an impactful product. You don't just say that I see street kids and then I'm going to just give them food. A lot of thought has to go through it. Is it sustainable? Are you going to just give your money to the kids on the streets, and then at the end of the day, a lot of kids come in there because they know that one way or the other, somebody will bring food for them to eat. But if they fall on a project management organization like us, we'll help you to come with a structured way to ensure that these kids are being taken care of, and then we are cutting the menace of street kids. So a lot of thought goes through projects. It's not about just going to dump things.
And these corporate institutions, the major ones out there, they know that executing a project is not just, you know, like you said, or it's not like tomatoes going to buy them at the market. It's a process, and you must put certain measures in place. But yes, we know some of what you've done, but what makes you stand out as project managers, implementers, Jemima?
Yeah, so as project managers, like I was saying earlier, we don't just implement the project and dedicate it and then we'll pack our tools and sit down. We follow the project and then assess the impact of the project. So at the end of the day, you see that your project is impacting to the lives of the people, the beneficiaries, okay?
Right.
So we do not just implement projects, but we ensure that they are impactful and they are really, you're getting the benefits of which you created that product.
I have a suggestion. So why don't we make this impactful implementers?
That very well describes us.
Right. So I'll be taking your final words shortly, but I want you to give us a feel. What sort of organizations have you worked with? What other organizations, what should organizations coming on board with you look forward to before we take your final words?
Yeah, so she mentioned that we've worked with Mrs. Tracy Addo, and then we've also worked with other institutions in Gambia and also in Ghana, in all about 10 regions in Ghana, and we are looking forward to cover more regions in Ghana. We are looking forward to work with philanthropists, individuals, corporate social responsibilities for corporate organizations. So if you have a foundation and you need project management processes to make sure that the foundation is solid, it's impactful, and then the impact that you have created is measured. Okay, so we are looking forward to work with philanthropists, foundations, NGOs that needs project management services support, corporate institutions, corporate Ghana, and then also even individuals outside Ghana who want to implement projects in Ghana, credible organization that will take you through processes and make sure that you get the benefits out of your resources.
Lauren, you'll have the final bite in about a minute. Tell us, give us your wrap-up comments, and also tell us how people can reach you.
Sure. So just like Jemima said, we are looking forward to working with a lot of, now all of these corporate institutions. We want to make a difference in the corporate world to make sure that the projects that are implemented are high impacted projects and they are also following the sustainable development goals. And if you want to reach us, we have our social media platforms. On Instagram, we are at ImplementersGH. On Twitter, we are at ImplementersGH. On Facebook, it's Implementers. On LinkedIn, it's also Implementers. And our phone numbers.
Email? Okay.
Yes. So yes, the email is also, you can reach us at projects@theimplementers.org.
So projects with an S. Projects at theimplementers.org.
Yes.
Okay. Phone number?
And our phone numbers are 030-397-9115. And then we have another number that is 030-315-6600.
Project executed, project implemented.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Implemented.
Very much so. Thank you, Jemima and Lauren, for joining the conversation, and we wish you the very best.
Thank you for having us.
All right. And I've just been joined by Jemima Akosia Okai, Assistant Communications and Impact Manager with Implementers, as well as Lauren Esiamayabwa, Assistant Projects Manager with Implementers. And we'll take another breather. When we return, it's all about you and your engagement on the matters we've been discussing today. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's your time. We focus on you. We'd love to hear from you. The phone number is active. Just call 0302-211-691 extension 2. 0302-211-691 extension 2. It will be rolling on your screen. But Bernice, right here, is going to be walking us through what you've been sharing with us on social media.
Definitely, Benjamin. And we put that question on your screens on our Facebook page. And here's what we got from some of you. How are you staying vigilant amidst the news of a possible terror attack in Ghana? We start with Good Heart Barak, who says, I think these ideas will help. Landlords should be vigilant on people who come to rent their homes. We heard one of our guests talk about that. They should make sure that they understand the personality, his origin, the intended purpose of renting. Terrorists will stay in a country for some time before they begin to implement their purpose. 2, hotel managers should also be vigilant. And 3, we know that terrorists mostly attack schools and churches. We must be on the lookout at these places. So landlords, landladies, hotel managers, school heads, etc. should report any suspected individuals to the police immediately. Peace Anafo sighs and says, I heard this on air and I'm like, what's going to happen to us in Ghana? So now if you even want to attend an event, you need to be watchful, be it religious programs and other social gatherings. Your pastor can force you to close your eyes even when you're praying. And that's how bad the situation is. And he says, may God help us.
Okay, so as we take those comments, we're also going to hear from Patrick from Sifribioso. Patrick, good morning.
Ben and Benny.
Thank you for calling. Please, when you call, go straight to the point. What is your thinking on the security threat to Ghana?
Yeah, I was listening to your panelists this morning. You know, JoyNews is my favorite TV channel, and I've been watching JoyNews since its inception.
We're glad to hear.
And that was a brilliant ideas from your panelists. I think we must be each and everyone's keeper. You know, like we in the Western North region like this, we have a whole lot of porous borders over here. I'm telling you the truth. We are in the hospitals. I work in a hospital facility that sometimes those who can't even speak French and other languages that we can't even understand. I hope you understand.
I do.
So this is the time that we should be each and everyone's keeper. We should be very vigilant in our doings, how we work, how even in our transportation and everything. We should be very vigilant. And although Ghana is a very good country that people admire us a lot, but we should be very vigilant with our security and security.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Patrick, thank you for connecting. Bernice, we have Opoku from Cape Coast.
Hello, Opoku. Let's hear what you have to say. Quickly, please.
I would want to comment on, the nature of or the kind of police personnel we have in Ghana. I listened to Professor Kwesi Eni and then Mr. Bombadi.
Right.
And Mr. It looks as if, Professor talked about attacks on the police. And sometimes I would want to ask ourselves, why do people attack the police? Nothing happened just like that. You see, people will attack the police because they think that the police are not giving us the justice we need. And for that matter, if I cannot get anything from the police, I will have to attack.
Right.
You see, I have an experience with one cousin of mine. He's an Uber driver. He was, arrested by police, and then he knew he has done nothing wrong, but the police insisted. And then his car owner told him if he knows he has done nothing wrong, he should remain in the car. He's on his way up. And this policeman on the phone, he told the guy that if this incident had happened in an obscure area, he would have gunned him down.
Wow.
That's what the policeman, and he repeated it 3 times, even at the police station. He repeated it when they sent him to the police station.
So let me just interrupt here. So what was done? What was done about that threat?
Come again.
What was done after you heard that threat?
You see, the whole thing is that we couldn't do anything about it. We couldn't do anything about it. And the guy was thrown into cell and he was taken to court. More importantly, you see, every information they took to court was lies. They forced the gentleman to sign, a statement he had not read. They forced him to sign. And one police lady in there told them the way they are doing things over there, they should be very careful.
All right.
Yes. We're grateful for that picture you paint. It resonates with what you shared earlier on the show about some of these incidents.
Yeah.
But let's move on to Ashaiman, where Anthony is calling. Good morning, Anthony. Straight to the point, please.
Hello, Anthony. Do we have Anthony from Ashaiman? I think we. Hello. Hello.
Is Tony on the line from Ashaiman?
Well, it appears we lost him there. Please, when you call us, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time, but we'd like to hear from as many people as possible. So just keep your submissions short and straight to the point. Opoku from Cape Coast.
Hello, Opoku. Good morning.
Good morning.
Please go ahead with your thoughts.
So, like I was saying.
Yeah, he's the same person we were talking to. So
right.
Let's say, yeah. Opoku, can you quickly wrap up for us so we can pick other callers, please? Hello?
It appears the line is, the connections are a bit tricky. Maybe we should take a few more messages before we go
Definitely.
back to
So this is from Terry Alot, who says, how do we stay vigilant when our own Ghana Police Service is the one killing us? And it brings back that Nkoranza issue. So if you also have thoughts to share with us about that, we'll be glad to take them. Ibrahim from Tamale. Good morning, Ibrahim. Let's hear you, please.
Yeah, good morning. Please, I would like to... Hello?
Ibrahim, please go ahead.
Okay, I would like to add up to what you just discussed this morning.
Ibrahim, please do so. That's why we've activated the lines. Just go straight to the point.
Okay, it's very unfortunate that we are hearing these information from our neighboring countries. We have to lace up our boots. And so therefore, these people are, they are within our borders, and our security forces they are our problem. Because if you look at the intelligence that these people are gathering,
right,
you realize that we are in a very risky situation.
All right. I think the picture is painted. We're in a very risky situation. We'll wrap, Bernice, with Kingsley from East Legon, our last caller. Kingsley, good morning. Hello, Kingsley.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, Kingsley, straight to the point. What are your comments, please?
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning,
I'm
Kingsley.
speaking from East Legon. This morning you made a story about government trying to give some portion of land to its rightful owners. And straight to the issue, government is really giving the land to themselves because currently they send one Clement Jato to be taking people's land, demolishing people's property.
I'm sorry, Kingsley. Unfortunately, we cannot allow that on air. If you have a concern to raise, we can do that off air, and then we'll do our own checks and balances before we get it published, for the rest of the world to hear. Unfortunately, we cannot allow that. So, Benjamin, I mean, this brings us to the end of the show.
Yeah.
It's a wrap. Today we've been very heavy on security, national level, at the local level, in Nkoranza. And also we've been talking about the Achimota forest issue, and that's what brought up that particular caller's concern. But we have to
Unfortunately, we can't verify what you're saying, so we cannot subscribe.
Sorry, but we can talk off air, and we'll do our own checks and balances on the issues you're raising. But water is life. It regulates your body temperature and keeps you alive and kicking. Awake is premium purified water treated through strict purification processes to ensure that every bottle on the market refreshes you better. We have the perfect size for every occasion. 330 and 500 ml bottles to fit your pockets and bags, 750 ml for the heavy drinkers, and 1.5 liters for those who always want more. We've also introduced our special 19-liter jars for offices and homes. Now you just need to stay awake with Awake Purified Drinking Water wherever you go. Come on, grab a bottle of Awake Water and get quality hydration. Awake Purified Drinking Water, one for life. Remember, for every bottle you purchase, an amount is donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center, produced by Casapreco. For bulk purchase, please call 026 2351 251.
Well, and on that note, it's curtains on the AM show with
Benjamin.
That is Abubakar
Benjamin.
Your name is Benjamin Akapo.
Now we need to go take some water, but don't go away. We've got a lot of interesting shows, up for you up until the major bulletin at 12. Coming up is News Desk with Aisha Ibrahim, and we'll be going back to Nkoranza, where Himingteria brought us those heartbreaking visuals from a mother who's just lost her son to police and a police youth clash. So do stay with us here on the JoyNews channel. But from myself and Benjamin, it's goodbye. Take care. See you again tomorrow, God willing.